Okay. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm going to open the March 27th, 2024 Board of Supervisors meeting for Buckingham Township. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you don't mind. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay. Right now, we are going to start with public comment. So, when you come up for public comment, if you could just give your name, address, and municipality, please. Yep, with them when they come up.
3647 Indian Springs Road, and I am not here for the reason that everybody else is here, so I'll be fast and I'll.
If that microphone's working, then use it.
Hello?
Yeah. No, it is. I just heard it.
Yeah.
Through it.
Yeah, it's working. Just tip
Go
it
ahead.
down.
It's just too tough.
You can take it off and hold it, can't you?
Yes.
Just tip it down.
I'll just try to talk louder.
Okay, Sharon.
Hi, I'm here to talk about the sewer. And to get an update, I know March was a big date for us, that everything was gonna come to a head, hopefully. So I wanted to see if we can get an update. I was told that, letters were being sent and signed, all from Wells' attorney, Rob Easton, was gonna do some signatures. The HOA was also gonna sign off. So I'm checking to see if, one, the HOA has done everything they were supposed to do, which I think the last one was the holding pond at the corner of Wellsford Lane and Indian Springs. If that was all completed, and if I know the other buildings that were going to be built have been built. So I'm just checking to see where we're at as far as dedication of the Wellsford sewer system.
We recorded last week the various documents, which are the easements, the conveyances to the township of the sewer system and things like that. There's 4 documents, and yes, Rod Eastburn did sign off on them on behalf of the estate, the Wells estate. The HOA signed off on them. So all that's done. There's probably still a few things. Did they get the extension on the?
They filed their NPDS NOT or notice of termination with the Conservation District. It has not been approved yet. They typically take 60 days, I think 30 to 60 days to process that. So upon receipt of them getting all the information, the Conservation District will go out and look at all the stormwater facilities and then theoretically approve the notice of termination. So that's what, at least what I think we're still waiting for engineering.
Yeah, so once we get the notice of termination, everything else is done.
So that's the final step? the
Yes.
determination.
Yes.
And then how long does it take after that to do the dedication?
The next time the board meets, they'll accept dedication.
Okay, that's perfect. And then my last question is who would I speak to? I think we need a few permits that still have to go in place. We were getting quotes on the sewer line, and they said we were missing a couple of permits.
Gary.
Right, Gary over there.
Gary Weaver.
Gary
Larry's
Weaver.
hand up.
Castle Valley. Yeah, Castle Valley.
All right, that's it. Thank you very much. Good luck to everybody.
You're welcome.
And I'm just going to make a quick announcement. Because one of the agenda items, if you're here, if you want to make a comment on the warehouse, one of the agenda items is about the warehouse. So all public comment for the warehouse are going to be during that line item. Okay? Sorry. I should have said that in the beginning, and I apologize. Is there any other public comment? Make sure.
Everybody.
Is that everything?
All good?
Okay.
Oh, wait.
Wait.
Are you looking for a seat or make a comment? Okay.
Okay.
Good. All right.
Okay.
Seats up front.
So, and that will be coming up. Okay, boards announcements. I'll just quickly say, oh, well, actually, you go first, Maggie. Any boards announcements?
You want me to read them?
Oh, sure, thanks, yeah.
Okay, I'll read the board's announcements.
Excuse me, sorry to bother, do you have microphones? We can hardly hear you back here.
So I think,
Okay, we can
I always say
increase
that.
them.
It doesn't,
Yeah.
they're not loud enough. Okay,
Yeah, we'll
remember
just-
to
we'll
vote
turn it up.
primary, and you know what, that, this is a general comment to all of us, let's speak loud, because I don't think they're loud enough for some of us.
The board, the buttons underneath need to be out.
Mine works.
Button right here.
Mine's working.
Do you have a last commission in here?
How long have I been
Hit
sitting
some of
here?
these off.
Remember to vote on primary election day, April 23rd. Yard waste pickup, leaf bags are available until April 5th in the township office, during regular hours, 7:30 to 4. Cleanup weekend, May 4th and May 5th. Bring your large items to the maintenance garage on Upper Mountain Road. Paper shredding, first day, 9 till noon, or maybe, is it 9 till noon? I think it's 9. I think that's it.
Okay, any
That's it.
personal things, Maggie?
No,
John?
I'm happy
No.
to see all these people.
Nope.
Okay, and I'll make an announcement,
You know what? This is how I started. So I don't take it lightly.
March 21st and today, we had an exec meeting, had to do with personnel, hiring a police chief, litigation, and land preservation. So, our exec meeting. Number 3. What?
Oh, Frola.
Yes.
Yes. Give me a second. So we had as many of you know, we've had litigation regarding Frolics with illegal mulching.
The Frolic Farm on 263 that has an agricultural easement on it.
Correct. Say,
I'm
I don't know
sorry
if it's
to
a
just,
farm, but
I'm just
yeah, the
jumping in there.
Frolics, yeah. And so we finally we went to court on behalf of our residents, quite frankly. And Craig, do you want to just update with?
Sure. We had a meeting about this size, about this time last year, with all the folks that live out in Devonshire. And there was a mulching operation going on in the farm that was massive. And the Devonshire folks came in and they were having ill health effects because of this, because it was smoke going out, particulate matter going out. It was a real issue. So the township decided to go ahead and bring a lawsuit to try and stop this mulching operation from continuing. We got the county to join us, because the county was also part of an easement that the township had acquired over the property a number of years ago. We went through, the folks that were there, we went through 5 or 6 days of hearings on it, and all the judges in Bucks County had to recuse themselves because one of the Frolics works for the court. So we had a senior judge, Judge Lewis from out by Harrisburg, who heard the case. And happy to say that this Thursday, we got the decision from the judge where he completely found the township was correct in every way, shape, and form. He banned the mulching operation from continuing anymore. They were also having illegal festivals, and those also got banned. Now, I fully anticipate we'll probably see an appeal on that, but as of now, there's an injunction preventing all that from going forward anymore. So I think the folks, at least in Devonshire, are probably very, very happy.
And the county participated too.
Yes, I said, yeah. So,
Great, good job.
yeah,
Thank you, Craig.
nice results
Thanks
for
for
the
the
township.
township staff for going through with that and doing a good job. Okay, great. I'm sorry, it was clearing my throat. Number 3. Okay. I make a motion, we approve the Buckingham Water Company Generator Upgrade Project, BT-22-01. Change order number 2, increasing contract by $2,700 to the new contract total of $785,370. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and as I always say every meeting, this is not tax dollars. This is monies that are from people like myself who pay into the water and sewer. This is for water customers, this money, not from taxpayers. Any
Not
discussion?
from the rest of us
Right, no, it's from taxpayers, but
that
not,
have private
it
wells.
depends if you're on a private well or not. Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3B, make a motion we approve payment request number 9 to GS Developers for work completed on the water company generator upgrades contract BT-22-01 in the amount of $191,336.50. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3C, make a motion we approve payment request number 22, final payment to GS Developers for work completed on the Cold Spring wastewater system upgrades. General contract BT-21-04 in the amount of $53,442.25. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3D, make a motion we approve payment request number 14 to GS Developers for work completed on the Cold Spring wastewater system upgrades. Electrical contract BT-21-05 in the amount of $27,398.50. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Make a motion, we approve payroll dated February 29th, 2024 and March 14th, 2024, and the bill list for the meeting of March 27th, 2024 in the amount of $1,350,791.39. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Make a motion, we approve draft supervisor minutes of February 28, 2024 work session and the February 28, 2024 regular business meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Make a motion, we accept for inclusion in the township records various departmental minutes and advisory board minutes to include Building and Zoning monthly stats, February of 24, and Planning Commission, September 6, 2023, and February 7th, 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Number 6, make a motion agreeing to the developer's request for an extension of time within which to complete the improvements as set forth in the residential development contract covering McCormick Development Subdivision Township File SA 2007-01 to April 10th, 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Holy crow.
He just has a
See,
curve.
so it's 3 lots. He has built a single house. He's trying to close out his NPDS permit, so he's converting the basin. He wanted to get it done this year so that he could close the project out, but ran into some weather issues, so he's still working on the conversion, and hopefully it will be done this spring.
Okay, good.
2007.
It's 3 lot subdivision, and he's only sold 1.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, number 7. Here we go, I'll make the motion.
Well,
Bud, should we not?
you're gonna let Mr. Feaster, I think,
Yeah.
present.
Okay. I was gonna open it up afterwards, okay.
Should we come up here or?
Yeah.
stand?
Yeah.
Yeah, just put
Up
your
at the
plans
table.
up on the easel.
Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Chris Feaster. I'm here with my veterinary business partner, Lisa Manicki, and our engineers from Arna, Schrag, and Ashman.
Can you use the microphone, please?
I am the property owner at 2137 Durham Road. I am also the resident, and on that property is our veterinary practice, the Buckingham Valley Veterinary Center. We've been a veterinary practice since 1955. We are the 3rd set of veterinary owners. I purchased the practice in 2016. We're looking to upgrade and expand our veterinary practice to keep up with current standards in veterinary medicine. We have a positive recommendation from the planning commission, and I was in front of you guys 11 months ago. If you want more information from me before I pass over to Sherrod, I'm happy to talk more.
And he can turn this
That-
around.
I was
if it-
just gonna
if
say
the-
that.
The
Can
audience
you do
would
us a
like to
favor?
see, because we have the,
Yeah.
And put it there so people can see it in
stick
the
it
audience.
over there, because we
Yeah.
have it in our digital
Okay.
thing.
This way,
packet.
people can see it in the audience.
And then it's not right in front of your face, so when you're talking, they can hear you. Thank you.
I want to dance face now.
It's okay, Dan's face can be covered.
Dan can't see it now. Dan knows it by heart.
Perfect, thank you. Okay.
That's the size of this whole lot.
What happened to,
That's the whole lot.
I know
A triangle.
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah, weird shape.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, good evening. So I'll keep it simple and condensed unless you have any questions. I think Dr. Christopher summarized it pretty well. I'm going to try to point with my laser pointer to guide the conversation.
Mhm.
The white line is the property boundary. It's about 3 acres. That is Dr. Feaster's house and his practice right there.
Mhm.
The gray area is where the expansion is being proposed. The expansion area is about 2,388 square feet. The driveway to Durham Road already exists, although we are making significant improvements to the property. There are parking spaces that are currently within the right-of-way, the ultimate right-of-way. We are pulling them out. There is no stormwater facility that exists for the entire property. We are bringing that into compliance. We are planting, landscaping, putting lighting, and generally dressing up the site as part of the building construction work. We submitted the plans, I believe in September of last year. We've gone through 2 reviews with the township engineer and the landscape consultant. We have met with Dan multiple times via Teams, met with the landscape consultant out in the field. And all in all, we have a letter from Dan and the landscape consultant, which is very, very straightforward, condensed, minor items. And
Excuse me,
we,
didn't you also get a zoning relief from
that's
zoning
correct.
board?
Yep, we're coming to that. So I'm stipulating that we will comply with the outstanding comments in both Dan's review as well as the landscape review. We did get the zoning relief. We were in front of the zoning hearing board. Relief was related to carbonate geology. Although we have done investigation, there wasn't any carbonate geology within the 8 feet of dirt. However, the site is mapped as having a carbonate geology, so we are by default thrown into zoning hearing board, and we did secure that variance, so that's correct. We have a series of waivers that we do need as a result of site constraints. The existing building sits where it is, the right-of-way sits where it is, the parking lot sits where it is. To the left of this expansion is the septic field, and then there are holding tanks right where I'm pointing to it. So we're severely restricted with what we could do. There's only one way that a building could be expanded. Dr. Christopher has hired a very reputed architect that works with vet clinics, and they know how to lay that out in terms of functionality and operations. So we've done everything that we could physically with the site, given the site constraints, but there are obviously some waivers that we can't get out of, as a result of the right-of-way. The right-of-way of Durham Road is 100 feet wide, it's the ultimate right-of-way. So it takes a large chunk of the property out, and therefore it creates some nonconformities, some modifications, and some straight waivers. So I'm happy to go through the waivers if you choose to. We've been in front of Planning Commission, they've recommended approval along with the waivers.
I don't need to hear them again.
Yeah, I read through them, and I go with the planning commission on
You
this.
approve them all, Dan?
Yeah, we're supportive of all of the engineering ones. I think Carol was supportive of all of the landscape ones. they've done a really good job of addressing the concerns that we've all had. So, we, again, and the planning commission as well, supported all the waivers. None of them are really big ones. As you said, the site's really kind of restricted where they can put their improvements, specifically with the septic system located where it is.
Any other feedback that you have for us?
No, I think, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. That was just my, brief summary.
I'll just say it's a great small business, and from what we saw last time, it's exciting. It's a nice place, and I think the residents are gonna, that need the service are gonna totally benefit from it.
Thank you.
And I think when I saw you at Easter, I said, it's so nice, I might go there for medical issues. It's so nice. Except I don't bark, but
Oh, yeah, you do.
Sometimes I bark, but I don't bite. But it's very nice, and I appreciate you, staying in Buckingham and improving the property and.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Good job.
Absolutely.
Since the 90s.
All good.
Yeah. And Dan's been great to work with. And everything we've had to say makes sense and why we need to do things the way we do. So thanks.
And I just would make one point. They have asked for this to be processed as preliminary final. It is a relatively small land development, so we've all supported that, and so you won't see them back. They'll once you give them approval, it'll go ahead through and go to construction hopefully this summer.
Great.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'll make the motion now then.
Okay, good.
Number 7, make a motion. We accept preliminary final approval for Buckingham Valley Veterinary Expansion Land Development Plan dated revised February 16th, 2024, Township File LD 2023-03, Tax Map Parcel 06-019-011, Lot 1, 3.38 acres, located in the AG1 zoning district, with an extended review period expiration date of January 2nd, 2024. I'm sorry, 25.
And I think it also, Mr. Chairman, needs to be subject to the latest review letters of Knight Engineering, which are all will comply, and of landscape review consultants, which are all will comply, and that all the waivers that are requested are being granted.
So be it. Lori, did you get that?
Yes.
Okay, do you have a second on that?
Yeah,
Okay,
second.
perfect. Any other discussion? Anybody in the audience? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Aye. Good job.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Congratulations. Thanks for coming. Good job. Okay, perfect. So what I'm gonna do for the next one, I'm gonna make the motion. And then after I make a motion, I get a second, then we're gonna open it up.
For comments.
For
not
comments.
Discussion.
Correct. Okay. Number 8, make a motion, we accept the offer of an extension of the allowable review time under the provisions of the PA Municipal Planning's Code for the proposed warehouse DiGirolamo Tract Township File LD 2023-04 to August 1st, 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Craig, this particular motion, though, explain it.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
And then we're gonna open up. Craig's gonna explain the motion.
The motion is a truly pro forma motion.
Good night.
And here's why it has to be made. Once they file an application, the township, from the first meeting of the planning commission, has a limited amount of time within which they have to make a decision. And if they don't make a decision, yay or nay, it's what the courts call deemed approved. So in other words, if they don't make this motion, and get this extension from the developer, which is what this is, the developer's basically saying, look, I'm not looking for a deemed approval, I'll extend out the time within which you have to make a decision on this application. In the 25 years I've been doing this, I've never had a board deny one of these. It's typical that you grant it because it's to the benefit of the township to grant it, because then you're not under the gun of having it deemed approved. So that's the reason it's on the agenda. As I said, it's just a typically very pro forma thing that you do, and it means that the township has more time to decide yes or no on this application than they would otherwise have under the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code.
You want to explain what deemed approved means?
Yeah, I apologize if I use some jargon like deemed approved, but what deemed approved means is that, guess what? Because you didn't act on it within X number of days, it's approved.
As it's
As it was applied for,
submitted.
in the
Right.
way it was applied. That's a bad thing. You don't want deemed approvals. So this is just the township making sure they don't get put into a box where this thing gets deemed approved or approved without the township having a chance to review it.
Now, thank you. And now saying that, it also is a good excuse to have a discussion, right? So now if, I know someone came up before so John and Maggie are gonna help me, because some of you already know me, I have an eye disability. So if you raise your hand, John and Maggie are gonna help, or you stand in line and get to them. So just remember to,
Well,
Wait, hold on a second.
yeah, and something else, legalese, I want to explain. The board's happy to hear all your comments and will entertain anything y'all want to say. But I've instructed the board, they're not to engage you in a discussion. They're not to express an opinion, yay or nay, in any way, shape, or form, and I'll tell you why. Because there's a bunch of court cases that say that if it appears that any of these board members that will ultimately vote on this application are prejudiced or biased one way or the other, they can't vote on it. This is pro forma. This isn't the substance of the application before them. When that happens, yes, they'll engage in discussions with you and do whatever. But now they can't express any bias because conceivably the applicant, the developer, could say, wait a minute, you said you thought this was a bad idea, so you don't get to vote on it anymore. I'm moving that you recuse yourself. An example, for instance, I don't know if he is here, Mr. Bateman, who ran for supervisor last year. Had he won, and he was sitting up here when this application came up, he wouldn't be allowed to vote because he'd already taken a position publicly on this. Now, that may sound a little strange, and in 2003, one of the state senators here, a guy named Stuart Greenleaf, actually introduced some legislation to say that's a bad idea. We should let people, if they're running for office, express an opinion and still vote on these things. And that got into law. But then the court said, wait a minute. This is an issue, a constitutional issue of due process. So the applicant is entitled to have due process. They're allowed to have an impartial board that's deciding this without having made up their minds ahead of time. So they say, even though there's a statute that's been passed, that doesn't matter because the Constitution, due process, trumps local state statutes. So I have explained all this to the board in a memo, and I basically told them, listen to everybody, be nice, be polite, but do not express any opinions or engage in any conversations. So if they don't talk back to you, it's not because they're being rude. It's because I told them not to.
and it's to protect us, because we're part of you, we're your neighbors. So it's to protect all of us, because if we get kicked off, it will absolutely go to a judge.
Stop.
That's enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not talking.
So, okay.
That's it.
Okay, so if you get up, and just remember to give your name, your municipality, and your address for us.
Jeff Lauber, Twin Brook Circle.
Speak
First off,
up. Speak up,
Oh, I'm sorry. Is the
because
microphone
you have
working,
your
or-
back to the people that, they can't help it, they're
Jeff,
sitting
maybe,
behind
can't you
you.
tip the mic
Yeah,
up?
tip the mic up.
Everyone's
Or even
different
hold it
heights.
if you want.
That's the
Yeah, no.
It's
We
on,
just
it's
tipped
on.
it down.
Brook Circle?
You have to put your mouth close to
I'm
a
gonna
mic
move back a
normally.
little bit, maybe some more people can hear me. Jeff Lauber, Twin Brook Circle. I understand the procedural nature of the meeting tonight, and thank you for the explanation, and I understand the rationale for that. And Lori, thanks for the heads up as to tonight's meeting, and that was communicated. I want to talk for a moment, and I'll be brief about the warehouse itself. First of all, what a shame, okay? You guys are going to be forced to consider a warehouse plan that will destroy Buckingham and the Plumstead neighborhoods, okay? It's gonna put walkers, bikers, and children in tremendous danger. There are school buses that stop on Landisville Road, okay? Both picking up in the morning, dropping off in the evening, okay? Those roads are darn narrow. There are no curbs on those roads, okay? Heaven forbid. The turns that we're talking about that these trucks will be taking are extremely tight, okay? Trucks will be coming in opposite lanes to make those turns. No two ways about it. The noise pollution of 90 truck trips per day, 18-wheelers. Are you kidding me? The placement choice of this distribution and warehouse of this size and in this location has not sufficiently been thought through by anybody with any common sense. Thank you.
Hi, Bob Everly, 4435 Old Easton Road. My family and I have lived here for 28 years, and we just love the neighborhood. Really great. And by the way, we're right off of Stony Lane, so we'll be very impacted by this. The proposed warehouse on Stony Lane will not benefit our community in any way. It's not a children's hospital. It's not a senior center. It does not manufacture any products. It offers no services that we do not already have. It offers nothing positive to our community. It would simply distribute the same packages that we already receive. We get these packages in 2 days as it is, without a new warehouse. If the warehouse does not get built, the same trucks that they use today will just have to use the same routes that they're using today. That's all. The warehouse will not bring any benefits to us, to you, or to the community. Simply more profit for a company or two. What the warehouse will bring to our community is heavy truck traffic, like Jeff talked about, and the safety issues when these estimated 90 semi-trucks per day drive through our narrow country roads. It also brings a lot of noise and a lot of pollution. These are major concerns. So we urge you as supervisors not to grant any waivers for this project. This warehouse is not good for our community. Thank you.
And just please say your municipality with your address, please.
Oh, it's
Thank you.
Plumstead Township, about that far away from.
Okay,
2,000
thank
feet
you,
from the-
and thank you for coming. Thank you.
Jacqueline Napa, Doveport, Buckingham Township. I also echo what has been said ahead of me. I am not in favor of this warehouse. I am very, very concerned about the infrastructure of our roads, our road systems, safety issues, environmental issues, noise pollution, light pollution, water pollution, air pollution, and that is what I feel none of these things are what Buckingham Township is all about. So I'd like to register my opinion to not vote for the warehouse.
Mike Bateman, thanks Craig for the call out, I appreciate that.
Address, municipality.
Tall Oak Court, Buckingham Township. The first question, I would appreciate some engagement on. It has nothing to do with partiality. If the extension is granted, can you please clarify the timeline as to when the plans would be back in front of the Planning Commission or back in front of the board here? If you can clarify that timeline, that would be really helpful.
Sure. The motion was to extend it to August 1st, 2024.
So that is to be back in front of
The Planning Commission and then the zoning, and then the Board of Supervisors. To be really candid with you, I'd be surprised if they meet that. They don't come in and ask for another extension, but it's possible.
So you're saying August 1st would be Planning Commission and then...
No. By August 1st, the way this motion reads, by August 1st, 2021, they have to have it all done.
Through you without another extension?
Right.
Correct, okay, thank you. We needed that clarification. Secondly, I understand you guys aren't going to engage, but some questions that y'all probably should consider. So, should the community have any expectation to know what kind of materials are being transported on the local roads through this distribution center. I think that's really important for us to all understand. It also appears that the infrastructure around the industrial area is severely lacking. The roads are clearly too narrow to support the proposed traffic that this is going to bring. And as evidenced the other day, flooding is rampant with even just a one-day storm, which led to road closures and all kinds of flooding. So do you guys have a perspective as the supervisors on how the upgrades of the infrastructure are going to be addressed? Whose responsibility will it be to improve this around this area? Is it the developers? Is it the township? And how's it going to be funded? So if it's the township, presumably that's our tax dollars that's going to be having to pay. So at some point, if y'all would ever address any perspective that you have on that, that would be greatly appreciated.
Well, those are the kind of issues when this becomes before the board substantively that the board will address.
We appreciate communication. We've asked for it. We haven't gotten it. So thank you.
Nice job.
Janine Walters, I'm at 4576 Deep Creek Way. I just have a question.
What township?
Buckingham.
Okay.
Will we, as a community, have the opportunity for you to engage with us?
Yes.
At what point would that be? Do we have a date or?
We don't have a date because it's not through the planning commission yet.
Okay, so
Okay,
once it
but
goes to the planning commission.
the process is, it goes through the Buckingham Planning Commission. Is the Bucks County Planning Commission written a letter on this yet?
Yeah, we've written one.
Okay. Luke is from the Bucks County Planning Commission. They also review this and make recommendations. The local township planning commission will make recommendations. The zoning officer makes recommendations. All this information comes in front of the Board of Supervisors. And then the applicant, just like just happened here, comes in front of the Board of Supervisors. And then you're absolutely right. Then all those issues will be discussed, hashed out, and decisions will be made one way or the other.
So that's the date that we should make sure we're here to have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
Can we understand what the Bucks County Planning Commission's letter says? You said it's already.
I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure it's available. Do we have it?
No. It's not in our packet.
Well, when it,
Because
because
this is
it's
just
just
an
an
extension.
extension,
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
have,
Is that a public meeting?
The Bucks County Planning Commission?
Yeah.
Well, technically it is, but I don't think anyone ever attends. Do they?
guys, we're not getting anyone's names or anything. Lori's not gonna be able to take notes.
That's right.
When
One
people
at
are
a
shouting
time,
out.
so we get your name, or
Yeah,
else you
just-
can't get in the minutes.
That's okay,
Yeah, good point.
trying to help Lori out there.
What happens with the Bucks County Planning Commission is the staff of the Planning Commission, and they're all professional planners, they've all been educated in this field. They make recommendations in terms of what should happen or shouldn't happen, what's right, what's wrong, and they prepare a letter. And then that letter, and correct me if I'm wrong, that letter then goes in front of actually the Planning Commission, which is a group of citizens. And they review it and say, yay or nay, yeah, let's send that out, that's our decision, that's our opinion. And then it comes to Buckingham with the Planning Commission's recommendations as to, what issues should be addressed, what are concerns, and what aren't concerns.
So hold a second. So I have a question.
Sure.
With the Bucks County Planning Commission. But most of, what is what comprises your recommendation is really based on zoning, saldo, and, rather than, I'm just thinking about all these people and their time. I mean, do you engage? I'm sure you engage. Do you usually have recommendations from residents included?
In the letters, no. No, our comments are based on the zoning ordinance, compliance with the zoning ordinance, compliance with the saldo, any other general planning concerns based on the land use that's proposed. And yeah, like Craig said, the planners, the planning commission write the letters, and then it goes in front of the Bucks County Planning Commission board. And that's when the board, whose citizens will approve that letter. Now, all the comments are just the recommendations. It's directed to the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission. Yes, all of our review letters are public. You can give me a call. I'd be happy to talk through any comments that we have in our letter. And it's also available online on our portal. Sorry.
It's all right. Take your time.
One,
It's fine.
one additional.
Hold on.
comment. Oh, sorry.
Does Laurie have your name and?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer Potto, Church School Road, Buckingham.
So, sorry, just
Oh, no,
before I
wait,
lose the
I
thought.
was gonna ask you about waivers, do you also get involved with the
No.
waivers? That was my question.
We'll note them, what the requested waivers are in our letter, but unless we feel very, very strongly one way or the other against a waiver request, we actually bring that up. But typically, if a variance is requested or a waiver is requested, we won't actually mention that in our letter. Sorry.
I just have a procedural question.
It's Trevor Foster, Braddock Court, Buckingham Township. I understand that a request was put in for information if the town had made a bid on the property and how much that bid was made for. The request was denied. So as speaking to the council person, how do we obtain that information? How do we find out how much money was bid on the property by the township and what the reasons were for it to be denied?
Well, the reasons it was denied are in the letter. Real estate transactions, until they're consummated, are not public documents. And you might imagine why. I mean, if you're in a negotiation with somebody, you don't want the public engaging in that negotiation. And if an agreement was reached, then all that would be public documents. But until and unless that happens, none of that is a public document.
So to clarify, you made an offer and it was not, you have not come to a decision of, or an outcome, what's happening with that offer.
I think it's fair to say that the township has made many offers over the years and they've never been accepted.
But we don't know the dollar amount and or why they weren't accepted. Or you can't release that.
Well, you know, I can tell you this, there's not a whole lot of documentation. A lot of them were simply phone calls and discussions between council. You know, is there something that can be done? Can we work on this? Can we do this? What about this? That kind of thing. I mean, you know, that's most of what there was. And so, you know, any public documents that the township has on it, they would give you. But the stuff that's not a public document, you know, they're not public documents for a reason, so
You
they
have
don't give
turn.
them to you.
Somebody else speak first. This lady?
Phyllis Rubin Arnold, Longview Lane, Buckingham, right on the corner of Burnhouse Hill and Longview Lane. Is there a traffic study done by anyone other than the developer? Because Burnhouse Hill Road, maybe you don't know, down my way has a one-lane bridge. And my road, people are in that gutter all the time. If two semis are going back and forth with each other, they're not gonna make it. Right in front of my house. The cops have the white lines there, they're doing traffic stops, everyone, for speeders. But I'm telling you, they're not gonna make it. They're gonna be on my lawn, they're gonna be taking up my fence.
Hi, I'm Victoria Bresnahan, can everyone hear me? I live on Landisville Road, and I'm standing here because
Are you in Buckingham or Plumstead?
Buckingham, I apologize.
Okay.
I'm standing here because I'm in shock. I'm in shock that a project that is so wrong for our community has gotten so far in this process. I'm in shock that Buckingham's small-town infrastructure, which in no way can support 90 18-wheelers a day, hasn't been enough to convince the powers that be that this project, as planned, cannot happen. I'm in shock that the safety of our roads is being treated as an afterthought. That the guaranteed negative environmental impact from noise and light pollution, to the potential hazardous materials on the site, to the flooding issues that actually close Cold Spring Creamery Road for most of Saturday, are not being considered. I'm in shock that the tax burden of the improvements, and I use that word lightly, necessitated by this warehouse will fall on the shoulders of Buckingham residents that will be expected to pay for what the developers are attempting to sidestep. And mostly, I'm in shocked that the combined dissenting voices of hundreds of people in our community has not been enough to convince the powers that be that this proposed warehouse will destroy everything we love about where we live.
Jeff Lauer, if I could just ask a procedural question. I'm struggling here, okay? Because, for example, Luke's report, okay, so he's gonna issue a report. How, as citizens, do we find that out? I know the right to know process, okay?
Luke
but
just
we
said
don't
it's on
know-
their website.
Well, that's new news, so that's interesting. But we need this information, you know, the potential, if you've negotiated or not negotiated, if you've discussed a price that the town could pay, potentially the community could try to fill a gap. But unless we know what that gap is, we don't stand a chance of helping. So, as a team, we can work together, but we're not partners yet. There's a lot that the
Well,
community can do.
let me stop you right there, okay? This board can't be partners with people that have a position on this application, or none of them will be entitled to vote.
I understand, but it's a matter of information flow that is critical, okay? And that's all, that's my point.
Just to address that further,
Wait a second. That's okay.
sorry,
Hang on.
I just wanted to say that I might be booking myself full tomorrow, but I'm the planner at Bucks County Planning Commission for Buckingham Township, so any reviews that come in for land development, I'll be the one reviewing. You can always give me a call, and I'll walk you through any of the comments in our review letters that have already been issued. And we also have a portal on our website that has all proposed land developments. And so on there you can see, I believe we always upload the site plan as well as our review once it's complete and approved by our board. So that is some information that's out there, and if you have any questions about the information on our website or in our review letter, feel free to give me a call. Every time the applicant submits a new plan to the Bucks County Planning Commission for review, we'll issue a new review letter. So we're not gonna do it like for tonight, for instance, but if they make substantial revisions and send it back to the Planning Commission, the Township Planning Commission, and Bucks County Planning Commission, then we'll have a new review letter issued.
And how do we reach you if we'd like to?
Well, hold on, we need a name and address and.
Sure, Amy Goldstein, 467 Branches Lane in Buckingham. How do we reach you with questions? Since a lot of us are having a hard time obtaining information, you're saying, call me, I'll give you information. We filed formal requests for information and have been declined and denied. So who do we call? How do we call you?
I think that was with the township. Again, I'm with the county, so the Bucks County Planning Commission's website, county's website, one of the departments is Bucks County Planning Commission, and all of our phone numbers for all of our staff are on that.
Is there a reason why you won't give us your phone number now?
Oh.
You just said, call me.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I can give you my phone number if you'd like. Do you want to write it down? You ready?
You bet.
All right, 215
Yes?
345 3406.
Okay, 215-345-3406, so we know who to call with additional questions. Thank you.
Sorry. I think I gave the wrong number. I got a new extension recently, I'm sorry. 08. I went from 6 to 8.
So it's 3408?
215-345-3408. Sorry about that.
Thanks.
Sure.
And this lady over here is trying to speak.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Marie Pergin. I live on Landisville Road. I am Plumstead Township. I want to first say we worked with you planning commissions here for the stop sign at Burnt House Hill and Landisville Road, the three-way stop sign. Thank you. It's helped somewhat.
Good.
To work with you. I'm not going to go through some things. We already talked about the local rural roads, how small they are, how large these vehicles are. And there is a plan, and they have shared with us how they're supposed to exit on Stony Lane, go down to Landisville, and so forth over to 611. Well, just yesterday, crossing my road, there was T-Force
tractor trailer coming from 413 to Burnhouse to Landisville to go into Doylestown. So that's not, nobody's gonna control these tractor trailers wherever they go. They'll go where they want, and that's just the way it is. The other thing is, we have a camp and a day camp and a school there. This project is very close. The fumes from those vehicles are going to affect the children. They're outside playing in the summer. During the winter, they take walks. This is gonna not be a good impact for them. I also want to bring up that, impervious surface, 150,000 square foot warehouse, a parking lot for potentially 300 employees. That's a lot of concrete, asphalt, whatever. There's a facility on Cold Spring and Durham Road that they had to put certain macadam down for this impervious surface. What's there, I understand there's certain percentages based on how large the lot is and things like that. Please take that into consideration, because that's huge tract of land that's going to be covered over. And if you're already having stormwater problems, this isn't going to make it any better. So I'll sum it up, and I implore you, please think about all these issues and really keep Buckingham and Doylestown and Plumstead the area that people want to move into.
Arlene Safi from Buckingham. I've lived here 45, 28 years, and gone through a lot of different processes here, as Maggie knows. This goes through the zoning before it comes here.
No,
No,
no.
it goes through them.
Planning commission here, they don't have to go to the zoning hearing board because what they're proposing complies with the zoning ordinance. They don't need a variance, they don't need any zoning relief. So it goes to the planning commission, we get recommendations from Bucks County Planning Commission, we get recommendations from the township zoning
So
officer.
it goes over
police department.
our zoning board,
No, our planning commission.
our planning board, it just goes over, comes right to you then.
After they've reviewed it, the county's reviewed it, the township engineer has to obviously review it, and the zoning officer reviews it, the police department reviews it, all those reviews come in to the board of supervisors. And then the applicant comes up, and then all that material's in front of the board and available to them, and then at that point, the township board of supervisors has to consider whether they're going to approve, not approve, approve with conditions, whatever they're gonna do.
So is it to our advantage for the people to go to any of the meetings before it gets here?
Sure.
Which ones?
I go to all of them, but that's up to you.
Well, I mean, how do we get the information to know when it's on their schedules and when we should be out there
Well,
to support
And are there
what?
people who
For
sign up
instance,
for
this hearing,
notifications?
Lori made sure notice went out to everybody that asked to be given notice, even though, as I said, this is purely a pro forma motion that's been made tonight. So that's why all these people are here.
I know that you're here. I'm talking about before it gets to you the next time.
Oh, trust me, you'll know.
The other thing, is there any possibility?
But say that.
It's on the website.
Yeah, I mean, it's, number one's on the website. Every time this is going in front of anybody for anything, including something innocuous like this, Lori's sending out notices to everybody that's given their email address.
Oh, I haven't gotten anything.
Well,
I
you
had
didn't
my
give her
email address leave forever.
Yeah.
Well, but you didn't give your email address on this issue,
I don't
Arlene.
have any information.
Yeah, but you didn't give your email address on this particular issue.
No. Yeah, I had it, I know that this was out there.
Because
mean,
I had
don't come
asked,
to the meetings
I
anymore
had
like
asked at
used
the
to.
planning commission, which was, everyone that was, most of these people were here, to pick one person, it was Jeff.
For Michael, I wouldn't have known anything. He wrote emails
Read the paper.
to us.
It's,
Can you
it's,
let Dan finish? Can you let Dan finish?
Arlene, Dan saw.
so at the planning commission meeting, we understood that there is a lot of citizen involvement, that I asked a single person from the group to be, the lead person to notify everybody. Jeff offered to be that. He gave his information to Lori, and before this meeting and future planning commission meetings, there'll likely be another email to Jeff explaining, what's coming up. So if you would like to talk to Jeff, and I'm sure you probably have gotten this notice of this meeting from something that Jeff started. So if you don't, I'm sure Lori would take your email as well and add you to what she sends to Jeff. We just don't want to have 500 emails that we're trying to send out to everybody.
Because if one person has got emailed,
Right.
this way, it just makes it easier on everybody.
And it
Jeff-
will all be on the township website as well.
And on the
Got
township.
the Buckingham Civic open again.
There
Yeah,
you
right.
go.
They're the good old days.
And a lot of people. Second question, is there any possible way that our township could put out a bond to the people in the township to buy from the owner with the price? Is there any, we did this before.
Well,
We have done this, where we
there's-
put a bond out,
there's-
ask the people to recommend, would they like us to put a bond out there? You pay for us to do this, to buy the property. And then you have a option of deed restricting it and then selling it back to.
Well, first of all, we already have a big piece of property out there that we own with the airport authority that's deed
You already have
restricted.
what?
A big piece of property out there that the township owns with the airport authority.
That's good.
Tried to deed restrict it, and a property in the industrial zone, once you deed restrict it with an easement, it's not gonna be viable to be sold for anything. I mean, so what you're really talking about, is having the township acquire the fee simple title, the whole property, for some public purpose. And the township's not allowed to do that unless there is a public purpose. It's not just, we wanna buy it, for the fun of it. There has to be a public purpose and a reason why the township bought it. Those could be things like, I could build another park, you're gonna put sewer treatment there, which frankly has been looked at before. It has to be a legitimate governmental purpose. You can't just buy it for no good reason.
And they could move it.
The person also has
We
to
have
accept
put,
the
yeah,
offer.
we have put a bond out for the people to buy ground.
Well, first of all, if we're doing a bond issue, that's probably what do you
Am I
think,
using the
a
right
year-long process at least?
Yeah,
Yeah, we have done that.
but that's also for property owners who wanted to sell their
Correct.
conservation easements or sell their
Well,
property.
that's an option still could be available. I mean, if we went and approached something like that.
Oh, they've been approached.
That option could be.
They've been approached.
Huh?
They have been approached.
Years.
Well, that's years.
You
and
can't,
this is
you
now.
can't pay more than appraised value. Okay, good.
Mike's on.
Okay, let Mike say. Let Craig say.
Okay, the gentleman here in the green jacket.
Who is they? Okay, the last meeting, they went on and on about the applicant, and nobody could tell me who the applicant was.
It's on the,
Who actually owns the property?
it says on the
These are all.
agenda.
Well, there's
right there.
two different kinds of ownership, okay?
And who is that?
There's called.
Wait, Craig. What's your name, your address?
James Albert, 4320 Mitchell
Tell,
Road.
Lori,
Thank you.
Buckingham.
Mitchell Road.
Mitchell Road, 25 years here, and I've never seen an abomination like this in any place I've ever lived. You're all looking at this is so obvious that this is deleterious to our community. Okay, and the first time somebody gets hurt on Landisville Road, a child gets run over, or there's a serious accident, and there's a $30 million lawsuit, that's gonna fall on the shoulders of the people in this room to pay for that, because it wasn't stopped in its tracks where it should have been, at this level, okay? You're not representing the interests of the people in this community unless you find a way to stop it, and you can stop it very soon if you all get together and decide how you're gonna do it. And that starts with the waivers. Every time these engineers ask for a waiver, I saw everybody nod their heads, yeah, okay? That's not the way it should work if you're representing our interests. I realize that most of you are not paid. I understand it, and I applaud your community commitment. But we have to live here. And the people that got up there with those baloney proposals, and they studied that nobody reviewed it because nobody even saw it, they don't live in this community. We do. If you think y'all will get down Landisville Road or Coltrane Creamery Road to Doylestown, or even go to the Acme or to go to the Giant to buy groceries, with all these trucks going back and forth every day, it's bad enough to do it right now. And you have to dodge
the road going like this on Landisville Road so you don't smash up your tires or your rims. Where is the common sense? Does anybody get to see here? Anybody in this room? Thank you.
Hey, I'm Peter McCullough. I live on Landisville Road in Buckingham. Oh, sorry, Plumstead, that's how much I know. It's all a big town to me, right? So,
We're all one community.
I agree. I don't even know where the lines are.
Pitchforks and torches.
Right down the middle of the road.
So, one of our citizens and neighbors here said that she was shocked. And as a citizen, I am shocked. But I can tell you, as an industry expert, I am shocked. I'm the Senior Vice President of Operations for a Fortune 500 healthcare distributor. We have like 10 billion in revenue, 25,000 employees. My team personally runs 50 warehouses across America. And we have 3 in the local area, 1 in Allentown, 2 in Philly. So I know this market well. We're always looking for new places to go. I would never, ever, ever consider putting a warehouse here. I mean, this makes no sense, guys. Everybody's right. You're gonna get somebody hurt.
And we're gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
And you're gonna pay for it.
And not once, twice, 3, 4 times we're gonna pay for it.
Not only get somebody hurt, the infrastructure's not designed for it. The points of ingress and egress out of here are ridiculous. This gentleman's right.
Thank you.
It's already all blocked up. Adding more traffic in here, nuts. And you just gotta think about the labor pool. There's not a labor pool in this area to run this warehouse. This site will be economically unviable. That's why I wouldn't put it here, in addition to the other concerns. So we're gonna build the warehouse, cause a whole bunch of disruption, and then whoever's the owner is gonna be coming back looking for concessions from this community saying, we can't run this thing anymore because it's not viable. It'll be a blight on the community. In any of these operations that we do, we buy warehouses, we build warehouses, we rent warehouses, and we run them. We would never do it and recover a night like this. We engage in the community to understand what the impact is, what the community wants, to make sure we can coexist as a neighbor. This like stinks. It really stinks.
What about the environmental study? Okay. Would you sign
Environmental
off
study.
money?
One at a time,
Yeah, one
please.
person at a
Would you
time.
do that if you were on their side of the room?
I would, no, I mean, I do this for a living. I would never do this. I would never put my company and corporation in the position of building this thing. And as a citizen, I agree, I'm appalled it's gotten this far. And it really feels odd, it's very tough to find out, what's it for, what's it gonna do? It's a beautiful area.
Why screw it up?
That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody, oh, gentlemen.
David Goldstein, Branches Lane, Buckingham. So I have a two-part question. I think it was mentioned earlier that there's a request for extension of this proposal. The first part is there any basis to deny this request for an extension? And the second part is, if it's denied, what's the impact?
It's a deemed approval. In other words, if we
You
deny
don't
this,
want it denied.
they win. They get the warehouse.
You just explained that.
Anyone else? Anyone that hasn't spoken? Gentleman in the back?
There's a gentleman and a young woman.
Speak up.
Did you give Lori your name and address?
I live off Birdhouse Hill Road, Southview Lane, and my question is.
What's your name, sir?
My question is this.
Can we get your name, please?
Just give Lori your name. You said Southview. Southview.
Thank you.
I'm gonna be nice, it's gonna be short and sweet.
Okay.
The bottom line, I want all 8 of you with your butts in the seat of an 18-wheeler driving in Buckingham Township on these roads. I want you to think about that. I don't care if it takes 6 months, 6 years, or 60 years. I want you to become a driver.
on these roads that are very poorly maintained. Now, the other point I want to make is that who is going to maintain these roads? And it's been brought up by a couple people. For the next 50 freaking years, Buckingham Township or the developer? Thank you.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, did you get the name? Oh, lady in the back.
I just have a quick question. Arlene Rosen, 3966 Lansville. Is there any coordination with the other neighboring townships as a result of the impact? Because truly, all of these tractor trailers are coming in front of our houses along with the school buses and picking up our children. But I'm curious if there's any coordination with the other townships.
If I can speak to that. So as part of the initial application, they were required to submit their application to Plumstead Township as well. Plumstead had passed it on to their road superintendent, and there were comments sent back to Buckingham from Plumstead regarding the application.
So there were questions?
I don't think it was questions. I think it was just, it was a general comment. I don't recall off the top of my head what it was, but,
I'm curious, because are they fine with this, Plumstead?
I don't recall the comment being an objection. I think it was a general statement. Again, I don't recall exactly what it was. You can reach out to Plumstead Township. They would certainly, maybe offer you their letter if you ask for it.
If we have the letter,
If we
can you
have
find
it.
I mean, it would be in, we would have a copy of it.
Well,
I think it was more of an email, but I'll, yeah.
So we don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But
You've already spoken.
Oh.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have.
Susan. Hi, Susan.
Hi. Susan Pearson, 3933 Burnt House Hill Road, on the old preserve property across from Bush Park. And so my question is the environmental, who ran that environmental impact study? And do the lights, are the lights accounted for? Animal migration, it's a wetland, so all our amphibians have been migrating. Turtles, all these.
All of the required studies, the traffic study, the stormwater study, wetland studies, the lighting plan was submitted as part of the application. We have done our initial review of it. There's a lengthy review letter. When we were here with the Planning Commission, I think they talked about some of those studies, so they will go back and make revisions and come back through the process again.
Okay, who did the environmental impact study and what does that mean? What does that entail? What is an environmental impact study?
Well, I don't believe there's in that term, environmental impact study required for this application. There's stormwater studies, there's wetland studies, there's individual studies that are required for most land developments. But the way that the township defines an environmental study, I don't believe it was required for this application.
Okay, so what does a wetland study comprise?
Identifying the location of the wetlands and the classifications of those wetlands on the site.
No specific study to look at the species?
There's a general, again, you look at the habitat of the wetland to classify the type of wetland that it is, and that takes into account those items.
But nothing about the specific?
That's part of the biologist or the wetland consultant's job to identify those species and then classify the wetland dependent on those species.
Well, Pindy too, right?
Right, and there's tons of different things that go into those wetland studies. I'm not sure are you looking for a listing of the species that are in the wetland on the site?
I'd just be curious of what time of year.
It's all in the wetland delineation study that, is part of the application. I don't have that information off the top of my head when they did it.
Who did that study? Somebody that they hired or somebody that?
Yes,
paid by
it's,
the township?
no, there's typically, it's up to their consultants to prove to the township that their site,
So the developer hired the person?
as with every other application that comes to the township, yes.
And then it
Dan,
goes
I have
to
a
our
comment.
engineer.
At the planning commission meeting, you mentioned, the fact that the road standards would be done in another study. But it sounds like what you just mentioned, all the studies have been done, because at the planning commission meeting, I asked what the road ratings were, and you said that's something they would be looking into.
Right, and that's what I just said, that they made their initial application, there were review comments. They've been here for one planning commission meeting, so that's why this extension's needed, is so that they can go back, address the comments from the various township consultants, the county planning commission, revise their studies, and they will resubmit those to address that, one being the strength or quality of the road along their frontage.
Yeah, I don't recall that in your review letter, but
It's called a CBR ratio.
Doesn't say it.
It does, it's called a CBR ratio.
Emailed them, but it doesn't say it.
Hang on.
And then,
Okay,
And the new one, and the new study doesn't mention it at all. about
okay, well,
zone
we've talked about it, and they're providing that information,
and
so.
Tina, you also just mentioned the fact that you were engaged in preservation with other folks, where they are interested in working with the township to preserve their land. Just last month, this board condemned the property of Sean McCardle, and they're turning his land into a spray field without his, I don't know anything more other than what's publicly available, other than that Sean, I know, was engaged in potential purchase with the township. Those didn't go anywhere, and now the township condemned the land of Sean McCardle and is now turning his land into a spray
Correct.
field, and he wasn't even present at the meeting last month.
Correct.
So, maybe you can elaborate, I don't know behind the scenes, so I'm asking, can you elaborate the difference between what happened with the McCardle property and what the difference between using this land for a potential township use be?
I'm gonna tell the board that they shouldn't get engaged in discussions about the McCardle property, because that's probably going to be the subject of ongoing litigation. And I don't want the township to be prejudiced by making statements that may come back to haunt them. I mean, you all see the TV show where they read you your rights and say anything you say can and will be used against you. And that would be the case here.
So the township did vote unanimously last month, well, I guess not unanimously, John was on vacation, 2-0, to condemn the McCardle farm, is that correct? To turn it into a
That's
spray
what the
field.
minutes reflect, yeah.
That's what okay, thank you.
So wait, before you let's go through everybody who hasn't spoken yet, and then I'd love to come back to you. Yes.
Hi, Karina Blair, Chondai Way, off Landisville Road.
Which municipality?
Sorry?
That's
It's
Buckingham.
Buckingham, sorry, I didn't hear.
Plumstead. No, it's Plumstead.
No, I'm Plumstead, I think.
Okay.
I'm off Landisville Road.
Yeah.
There's a little
John
road
Darwin.
back there. I'm a bit new to all of this, and I just wanted to express being slightly gobsmacked by it all. And I don't fully understand the different studies that have happened so far, but as the parent of 3 children, Landisville Road is a road that I already don't like my kids to bike on because it's terrifying. I don't see that improving, given this situation in any way. And I think the biggest fear I have is that if this does proceed, we will be in an awful situation that nobody wants us to ever be in. Because if a child gets hurt, or something worse on that road, I'm a little astounded, and I apologise because I probably missed a lot of various things that have happened, but I'm sort of confused as how it gets to this stage before we're all involved, without even knowing who it is, what it is, whatever. My other point that I wanted to raise, just based on some of the things that were just said, I'm not used to public speaking, so I feel a little nervous, so apologies. The other thing I wanted to say is, if most of these studies seem to be coming from the person who's wanting to get the piece of work done, is there a way of us in this room getting our own studies done, particularly from the safety perspective? Because I look at my little neighbourhood is full of very young children, and that is their only access out of the neighbourhood. It only has to take some of them like a couple of steps to be out there, and with Camp Curiosity just being on the road too. And that is my question, are we allowed to get studies of our own to counter some of these studies that are coming out from whoever they are?
The township retains several experts in these areas, and they review the studies that the developer produces. One of the reasons is so the township doesn't have to pay tax dollars to have those studies done. But these experts are expert in reviewing those studies, and as Dan was saying earlier, they say, hey, look, this is wrong, you didn't do this, you should have done that, and they send it back and they say, fix it. And if they don't fix it, Dan will call them out and say, this isn't fixed, or Carol will call them out and say, you didn't do this right, or Gary, who's left, this water and sewer engineer, will say, there's a problem here or here. So you're absolutely right. In the first instance, the studies are required to be done by the developer, and that's true across Pennsylvania. But they are being reviewed by professionals that are very, very familiar with this work, and call out mistakes or call out issues and make them be done in a way that works.
Or ask for additional information.
That's great to hear, but my question to that is like, what's the example of that? So when if somebody, and I don't know who that somebody is, responds back with, fix that. So for my question, like, prove to me that this is safe for my children who live in this neighborhood. Who's the person who responds and fixes that? And how do I know what that is?
You want to explain?
Yeah,
that?
so, and again, I'm,
Don't apologize.
if we're talking like traffic study, I think is what you're referring to about.
One I don't
So
know, but yeah.
every application that qualifies to have a traffic study, required, there are guidelines of what traffic studies need to look at. Their traffic engineer will create that traffic study. They'll submit it to the township. The township and specifically me will review that traffic study. Will provide comments back to them. Their traffic engineer will take those comments that they've gotten from Planning Commission, Board of Supervisors meetings where the application has been discussed, and then they'll revise their studies to address, those questions, comments, review letters, and such. They'll resubmit that back with their next revision of the plans. We'll go through that process again. They'll come back here for another Planning Commission meeting. Questions can be asked about those reports, and it just goes back and forth until the township is satisfied that all of the comments regarding the traffic study have been addressed.
So are the parameters of that traffic study, like, are they visible? So for example, if you take what times of the day the traffic study is taken, is it taken into account who comes from, for example, out of my neighborhood onto that road?
Right.
All of those, like, how does that get? And I'm probably
I'm talking generality. The township has in their zoning ordinance an appendix that is very specific to traffic impact studies. It's for any project that qualifies to have a traffic impact study. So if you have anything that's creating a parking lot of more than 10 parking spaces, you have to submit a traffic impact study. They get very detailed for the, depending on the use. So, a traffic study about a warehouse is going to be different than a traffic study about a restaurant. So in those, in that appendix of the zoning ordinance, there are very, general guidelines you have to follow an Institute of Traffic Engineers trip generation. So how many trucks are coming out of a warehouse is different than how many, trucks are going to come out of a restaurant or, any of those other types of uses. So there is some larger references that they have to go and follow. So our ordinances are general in that way, but it's just the way traffic studies are written. So with your specific street location, because it's not fronting on the street that they're accessing, there wasn't a study of the traffic coming in and out of your development. So the traffic impact is where they're, and again, this is what the standards are for traffic impact studies, is where their access comes out, and then the route to the nearest arterial highway. So the expectation is, and again, this is part of the discussion, is the expectation is the route is going to leave Stony, go out Landisville, Old Easton, and that way. So we're still working through how we are going to enforce that and make it happen, but that is the way the studies are prepared based on the path from the development to an arterial highway. So that they did not look at your intersection particularly, but others around the site they did.
It sounds like an oversight, personally. So how can that be addressed? Like, what's my course of action to ensure that isn't taken into account on a study? Because for my neighborhood not to be included in that study, with the sheer volume of children, and I'm absolutely positive I would get everybody in my neighborhood behind that, what would I need to do to make that happen?
Well, one of the things we asked them to do is update their study to look at the pedestrian movements. And again, that study, there are guidelines of how you do those studies. So we haven't looked at that yet, whether it involves reaching out to your community. You know, again, it will also depend on where the trucks are supposed to go. They haven't addressed that question. I think, you know, obviously there was a lot of people here that expressed those concerns during the planning commission. And I would expect that their traffic engineer, when they go back, and as I said, it's not just the review letters, it's all this other, you know, information that they gather through this process. They'll come back with a study. We get to ask them new questions every time they come back. It's not as if we get one shot at it. If they say something in a public meeting, I can respond to that and ask for some further information. So it's sort of a fluid thing as we look at these studies. So if there is a legitimate concern and there are, you know, a pedestrian movement that comes off of John Dyer Way onto Landisville Road that we can point to, you know, we can say you need to look at it. I'm not sure that if you went out, and I know they did some pedestrian counts in their original study, I'm not sure if the pedestrian levels are there to require additional pedestrian facilities to account for anything. So that's just based on that information, but we'll look at it when the studies get further refined.
Hang on. Gentlemen, because you haven't spoken, right?
Did I answer that? Okay.
You have not spoken.
No, I have.
Good. Speak.
Stephen Bird, 457 Landisville Road in Buckingham. Piggybacking on what you said, I used to walk to John Dyer Way and walk. I'm terrified to do that anymore with the amount of traffic we have. The little hill by Camp Curiosity, a good friend of mine's child was killed about 20 years ago driving a vehicle over there because there's no line of sight from one side of that hill to the other. You said about arterial roads, this study was done on a bogus, everybody will go to 611 by Wawa there, but it won't. 413, I believe, would be considered an arterial road. Those cars and trucks will come down Landisville Road, make that jog right by Camp Curiosity, by your driveway to John Dyer Way. So you have 413, you have 313, where I saw an 18-wheeler trying to make a turn from 313. I had to back up 4 car lengths because he came all the way over into my lane. That was one truck. So really, as far as I was concerned, that traffic study was based on some fantasy rather than reality. I'd like you to just consider that next time.
Anybody who hasn't spoken yet, I think it's you. And then we're going to come to this lady over here after everybody who hasn't spoken speaks, who wants to speak. Oh my God, not everybody.
Hi, I'm Laura Kessler. I live on my Ladies Lane in Buckingham. And this is my first meeting. I'm fairly new to this. But from what I'm hearing, I don't think there's a great deal of transparency about information that you're sharing with us. Is there any way that you can provide that information so that everyone is up to date on the decisions that you're making, the conversations you may be having?
Let me
wait a second, let her finish.
Let me explain something, okay? This process, I know y'all think otherwise. This process is the very, very beginning. It's nowhere near the end. This board hasn't even discussed this application in any way, shape, or form at this point. They don't have the information from it. They don't have recommendations from the planning commissions. They don't have any of those sorts of things. All the planning commission meetings are all open. The township, the application itself is certainly available to you. The studies that were done are available to you, and most people have had them. This board.
We're residents. We haven't, and I'm hearing that from a lot of other people.
Well, a lot of other residents. I'm sorry. A lot of other residents have gotten the traffic studies. They've gotten the other studies. They've looked at them.
And also, how has it gotten this far when so many people, like you have, so many people here that are objecting to this? How has it gotten this far?
Thank you.
And you're hearing from so many people that are claiming safety concerns, concerns with environmental concerns, traffic concerns. How
Okay.
has it gotten to be?
Well, what what I was trying to say here, like, this isn't that far yet, okay? And number one, the property owner has certain rights that are protected by law. And they have a right to make an application to the township, be it good, bad, or indifferent, to do something with their property. And then there's a whole process that the state law sets forth that you have to go through to see whether you're gonna be allowed to do what you're proposing with your property. And that's what we're in the midst of. But it's at the very beginning of that process. It hasn't even gotten through the planning commission yet. So, yeah, this board, they're entertaining everyone's comments at this point, and I'm sure they're happy to hear them. But they're not considering the merits of this application. And at this point, no one is allowed to turn down this application until they have the opportunity to go through the whole process. So it's not that it's gotten this far. The township doesn't have the right to sit there and stand up and say, we're not even going to listen to you. We don't want to hear it. We're just saying no. They would automatically go to court and win were we to do that. And they would get whatever they wanted without the township having a right to review it.
Or more.
So,
What about
and
the variances that have already been granted?
The waivers.
They've been given
Nothing.
no variance.
no variance or waivers.
Waivers.
So, and just to clarify, this application was submitted to the township on December 20th. It was reviewed by the planning commission on February 6th. That is all that this application has been through the process. So this is the extension. This is literally the third time that, well, it's actually just the second time that it's been in a public forum. So it is very, very beginning of the project.
Let him finish, please.
Planning commission heard it last.
Go ahead.
Different application.
Okay, show me the differences.
Excuse me.
There was one.
Do you have any, is making any
150
sense to you?
warehouses.
Thank you for the explanation.
But
Thank
it may, I mean,
Yep.
Yes.
okay.
Did you have another statement? I want to make sure
Or
you're able to
question?
say, or question.
Well, obviously, I stand with everyone else here. I'm very much against this going through. And as a homeowner, I am very concerned, and I just want you to consider our objections seriously and vote this down.
But you understand the timeline that Craig's laying out?
Yes.
Okay.
And I lived on Milady's Lane for many years. Good street.
The lady behind you.
My name is Lisa Evans. I live on 4086 Stony Lane, Buckingham Township. So the commission said they weren't too worried about the road, how wide it was. And then the board came back and said they weren't too worried about it either, because it was gonna cost the developers too much money.
Which board, I'm sorry?
What do you,
Which board?
I have the papers.
Which board are you
They're
talking about?
waiving doing anything to Stony.
Okay, no waivers have been granted yet. None.
It says they're, maybe they haven't, but it says they're going for it, they're
No,
saying it's okay.
Look, they're allowed to
No,
ask
no,
for
no, no,
anything.
I read it.
They can ask anything they want. That doesn't mean they're gonna get it, okay? They can.
It says right in the papers, the saldo, whatever, blah, blah, it says it right there.
It says they've
They're
asked.
gonna waive it because,
No,
no, listen.
I am listening. I'm trying to explain
You're
it to you.
saying, you're sitting here saying this is not that far along, but it is far along. Twice now they've said they're waiving that. And you can laugh and
No,
smile,
can I explain
whatever.
it to you? I'd like to explain it to you if you give me a chance.
I'm not buying the stuff you say.
Okay, that's fine. You don't have to
Not.
buy it,
The
but.
thing is we are the community, and you actually do work for us. And at some point, you're gonna have to realize that you're below us. No, they are. When people become government officials, they become our, we're the boss. We're the boss. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about we're the boss. The people, the community are the bosses too. You work for us, and at some point, and I think this community is gonna make that to be shown. But you are obviously waiving the bad conditions on Stony. There's no CVR being done, only an email was written. I've read all the paperwork. And there's something shifty going on here.
it hasn't
And
even
you
come
are
to
going to
that.
be responsible.
Okay, can I respond? Can I respond to you?
You can talk all you want.
There's no waivers that have been granted by anybody at this point. So no action, no formal action has been taken on this application at all.
Stop.
The applicant has the right to apply for waivers, and that's what they've done. I mean, they could come and ask to build a 75-story skyscraper there. They would never get it, but they have the right to ask for it. And that's where we are. They've asked for waivers, none have been granted.
Now, Dan, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that traffic study was done before the Wawa was open, correct?
I believe, yes, because that was one of our review comments,
So
yes.
because there's a new road there, wouldn't it have to be redone?
Yes, and that was, so part of the comment was their traffic engineer was also the traffic engineer for Wawa, as well as the recently approved Hyundai dealership for Fred Beans. They updated the traffic study of the new Research Way intersection as part of the Fred Beans application for the Hyundai. So they are going to include that information in the warehouse site traffic study. So they're going to incorporate the updates that they received from the Fred Beans study, because it's, again, same traffic engineer has done all the studies.
Okay, so are they also gonna look at other blind corners, like Mechanicsville and Burnhouse Hill, where you have to creep all the way out, or from Landisville onto Research Way, or any of those other blind corners that we are so happy to have in Buckingham?
Right, so the traffic study requirements specify where what intersections they need to study. If they are required to study those intersections, those types of issues are looked at when they look at the functionality of the intersection, whether it's their level of service calculation. So,
Right, and I know I said this the last time during the planning commission, but I have a friend, a very dear friend, who almost lost all 4 of his children at that corner, Mechanicsville and Burnhouse Hill. Helicopter had to come down, take one of them off to Children's Hospital, the other 3 were ambulanced away. It was bad, and it's still bad. It is an awful corner, and if an 18-wheeler is trying to come up or even make the turn onto Burnhouse Hill, God forbid, they're going into Connex Field.
and I understand that, it's a 4-way intersection, and those types of intersections are looked at differently than 2-way intersections where you have, traffic that goes through.
Yes, and he
So
said
sight
he did not
distances.
even get a C.
I'm saying that you look at intersections differently depending on how they are signed. If it's a
I understand.
traffic signal, if it's a 4-way stop, it's a 2-way stop. So all of that stuff goes into the evaluation of an intersection. So if there is a concern that is raised because of sight distance, typically the way you address the sight distance issue is you put in stop signs.
There are
Which
4
is
stop signs.
which is why those stop signs were installed about 10 years ago. So
After the accident.
after the accident. So again, that issue, I don't want to say has been resolved, because I drive through the intersection every day myself. I do understand that it's not the greatest of intersections, but it is also functioning in accordance with the way that the traffic engineers, and again, not their traffic engineers, but traffic engineering manuals, permit those intersections to operate like. So I understand. But it's in compliance if it's a level service to C.
Right, and when I moved here 27 years ago, I would walk from my house on the corner of Longview over to Hansel and walk up Hansel. I will not even, I have bushes there, I planted along my fence. I am scared to death to actually weed on that intersection.
I understand.
That little piece of my property.
And again, the purpose of the traffic study is to identify places where the intersections are failing.
But sometimes common sense has to come into it.
Yeah.
Not just a traffic study. You have to look at the human toll. You have to look at the people in this room. You have to hear it, and you have to think about the common sense of it. The common sense is
4-way was after the
Lady
accident.
in the side there.
Just a couple of comments. And a question.
Name?
Allison Foster, Braddock Court, Buckingham. I understand that you're legally bound. I understand that the property owner has rights. It concerns me that the property owner does not live in our community.
Right.
It concerns me that the property owner does not sound like he has been willing to cooperate or compromise. I think that's problematic. I think it's problematic that
this property owner who doesn't live in our community is trying to force something that obviously the community does not support. And what I'd like to understand, and I don't know that you can answer, because I do understand why you can't engage. I don't want to be naive, but I do want to understand, I think, was it Mr. McCullough? Do I have your name right?
Yep.
Yeah. You know, his point of going into a community and working with that community to find a solution that works for all, obviously would be the best of all outcomes. It doesn't sound like that's gonna happen with this particular gentleman. So really, what is our influence as a community on the outcome? If we really don't want this, and it's pretty obvious this is not what Buckingham is all about, what influence, what impact can we have?
Well, number one, I'm certain you're having an impact. Okay. But there are rules. And fortunately or unfortunately, this board, and I'll tell them this time that you have to follow the rules, because if you don't follow the rules, then the other side, the developers, they have rights. They can go to court, and the court will say, well, Township, you didn't follow the rules, so they can do whatever the heck they want. It's called a curative amendment is one of the things that can be done. So a township government like this has to be very careful to cross T's, dot I's, follow the rules, and do it correctly. And trust me, this board will understand and has heard your comments. And at the right time, when this matter is actually in front of them and they're engaging in an adjudicatory process, they're judging whether this should go through or not go through, they'll have those kind of discussions with you and with the developer. And the developer will have discussions with you. And then ultimately it will fall on this board to make a decision, yay, nay, no, you got to do this, no, we're not, those kinds of things. And, the political process is such that, you're all here making statements, and these folks have all run for elections, so, I've told them they can't engage with you, but I guarantee they're hearing you.
Dan, I think you missed a good
It's
Mike,
not your
let's
turn.
give
I
everybody
know
a
you want to
chance.
speak, and you will have your turn again.
Hi, Lou Kessler, the Ladies Lane on Buckingham.
No, a little louder.
Sorry, Lou Kessler, the Ladies Lane, Buckingham. Had a question on the traffic studies, on the validation, validity, accountability of what those studies showed. And that you mentioned that they were under the same engineer as the one that did the studies from the Wawa project. The person that decided to build a wall in the middle of the road to put a curve there. It's really genius. Genius. I've been. This UPS truck today rode me off the road because they swerved out. I was coming off the light from Easton Road because they have a big truck and they can't make that turn. How were they approved to do such a thing? Create a road like that?
And again, I think everyone acknowledges that the layout up there is problematic. But and again, I'm going to be. I have lived here before. Where all that intersection was, a dead stop in all directions. So I think this was a county-led traffic study that promoted the interconnections in the manners that they were made, with the orientation, getting rid of the traffic light at Old East and Swamp, trying to put as much traffic onto New Easton Road from Old Easton at the new Wawa. So there are only so many opportunities the township gets to allow a road to go, in places where they aren't currently existing. So that road was kind of shoehorned in to address a larger traffic issue regionally, not necessarily just for Old Easton Road. So understand that there were compromises made across the board. Doylestown Borough, Doylestown Township, Buckingham, and Plumstead all were involved in those discussions. We got what we could get, and we had a willing applicant willing to build the road. So I understand it may not be feasible to everybody, but in the general concept of improving traffic flow along 313, which was the primary objective.
So to improve traffic, they approved a Wawa to go in?
The Wawa is a permitted use on that property. What's that?
We didn't need a Wawa.
We don't pick winners or losers. I'm sorry. I appreciate that, but so that. Well, I can. You know, that's your opinion. I'll let you have it. So.
I would go to Wawa.
So. Okay.
Steve Morrison, Church School Road in Bell. I'm against it, first off, get that out of the way. I think the biggest problem that I'm hearing tonight is there's a lot of vague information out there. 90 trucks, I don't know, where'd that come from? You know, this developer is building a box. What goes in there, he probably doesn't even have much choice on that unless he's already got somebody, you know, and Fred has already said he's not doing it, according to Fred Beans. So who knows what's gonna go in there, but we got a pretty good lawyer up here. I've been on other boards in the past, and he's telling you, these are the facts. If it fits into the zoning and they meet all these requirements, it's gonna happen. The trick is to make sure that they'll do all the steps, and I think they're trying to do all the steps. They're listening, but you're up against a developer that wants to build a box, and things are gonna come in, and things are gonna go out. And I can't stand that Old Easton, you know, my back just gives out the time I get to Wawa. You know, it's like, and then those two crazy curves, you know, I don't know how people even do it with a car, because I have a hard time with a pickup. And imagine an 18-wheeler. Are we gonna put up a bunch of signs says, you know, local deliveries only, you know, nothing over 7 tons? I mean, do we have any control on where we can force these trucks to go? You know, I don't know how that even works. And somebody's mentioned online a couple times, they're gonna follow the GPS. Well, my GPS I've thrown out of the truck so many times, I call it, you know, where I wound up where I didn't want to be. You know, so I don't know what these guys are gonna do in them trucks and how they're gonna get to that warehouse, how they're gonna leave, you know. I just hope that you guys hear everything, and I think you are. I think your lawyer is telling the truth as he sees it. He's telling you the law. And that's not, you know, these guys can't make the law. That's done at the state level and the courts. So be careful who you shoot. You know.
They might shoot back.
Thank you. So, wait, just so we can hear you. Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Karen Thomas, I have a house on Surrender Circle and Holly Way in Buckingham.
Okay.
I wanted to say, the one thing is I was at the intersection of the new Wawa on the grand opening day, and I had to back up that curvy road so the Doylestown fire truck could get into the parking lot for their big grand opening celebration. So if that's one truck, one time, can you imagine 90 there all the time? The other thing I wanted to bring up is there was a meeting similar to this before the Wawa was built. A lot of people were in opposition. And everything is heard, and then all of a sudden, nothing's heard, and the next thing we know is there's a Wawa on the new road. And I'm afraid that's what's gonna happen with this warehouse. It's all of a sudden, it's just gonna happen.
There is another provision that I probably should explain in zoning law in the state of Pennsylvania. And that is the township is obligated to provide for any legitimate use in some zone within the township. And if they don't, the remedy is anybody can come in. For instance, if the township didn't allow for a trash transfer station, your neighbor could come in and say, hey, your zoning ordinance doesn't allow for a transfer station. So, I think I'm gonna file what they call a curative amendment against you, which is I'm gonna fix your zoning ordinance, because I'm gonna put a trash transfer station next to your house. And in fact, that's the remedy. And the cases are replete with, people filing these kind of curative amendments, because some use isn't allowed in the township. And it ends up being in a place that no one wants it to be, in the middle of someone's residential neighborhood. So the township has to be very, very careful to make sure that that every legitimate use has a place in the township where it can go. If they don't, then a developer can put it anywhere in the township they want. So what's going on is this is an industrial zone. It has a bunch of, I don't want to call them nasty, it has a bunch of uses in there that probably no one wants in the middle of their neighborhood. But the township has an obligation to have a place where those uses can go. And this industrial zone has been there since 1951. In a specific area where this property is since 1975. And in fact, a lot of the residential communities around this whole area were the product of curative amendments.
In 1979.
Yeah, 78 and 79.
Seven curative
Because the township didn't allow townhomes and garden homes and everything else. They all built single-family homes, but that was the theory they came in on. So by making sure these uses are allowed somewhere in the township is protecting you. They're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to make sure this doesn't end up as your next-door neighbor.
So, Craig, whose role is it to ensure the infrastructure is there in these industrial zones? It's been zoned this way for 50 years. Nothing has been done for 50 years to ensure that the infrastructure is there to support an industrial zone in this land. Whose role is that?
If an industrial application comes, the law is such that if the property borders a road,
That's
the
not
town.
what I'm asking, Craig.
Well, I'm trying to answer your question,
That's
and
not
if you
my
let me, I
question.
will.
That's
Okay?
not my question, Craig. My question is.
All right. So
whose
tell you
role
what.
over the
You
past
can
50
talk at the
years-
same time.
Mike,
as I
let
can
him
talk.
answer the question.
Okay.
That's not my question.
Okay.
I understand the frontage. It's
Well,
not-
maybe other people don't.
We've
Okay.
gone over the frontage. My question is, over the last 50 years, this zone has been zoned industrial, correct? That's what you said, 1970.
1951. Well, this one's since 75.
So 50 years. So this township has had 50 years in order to build up the infrastructure around this industrial zone to support something industrial going in this space. Whose role is it to build up the infrastructure to support something like that, so we're not facing 20-foot wide roads with tractor trailers in an industrial zone? This township hasn't done anything to build up the infrastructure to support that. If the infrastructure is there, I doubt we'd have this, that we're going here. The problem is the infrastructure doesn't support it. So what have we
You
done?
want me to answer your question? I want to give a speech.
Please
Okay.
answer my question.
All right.
We're not.
The township is not going to go out and spend your tax dollars, to build huge roads around something that it's not currently needing. That just invites that kind of industrial development that you're really not in favor of. So, what happens is when these kind of applications come in, it becomes incumbent on them, if they're gonna get in there, to put in enough infrastructure to support what's going on.
So Bertucci's is gonna do the infrastructure to widen the roads then, not the township?
I can almost guarantee you the township doesn't want to spend your tax dollars widening roads.
Well, that's great. That's what we all wanna hear.
Are you finished? Any more questions? No, wait, stop.
My other
Ask,
comment-
ask all your questions,
Yeah.
because then I really wanna hear from some of the
My other
people
comment
who
was, I think
live
there
in
is a
Buckingham.
misconception, and I think Dan was trying to talk to it, but I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I heard several comments tonight from folks asking or talking about waivers that have been approved. And I don't think, it's been clear that nothing has been approved, but I think what people are referring to and may be confused by is your waiver request response letter, where it does say in several places that the township or we would be supportive, we do not support, or we defer this particular waiver.
Those were my recommendation, not the
Correct.
township.
And so I think that's where some of the confusion is coming from, and I think it's better to clarify the fact that those were not anything that's been approved by the township, but things that have come. I think that's where people are confused, thinking that something has been approved as a waiver, whereas it's not, but you are recommending the township would support that, not support something, or you're deferring something.
That's probably, I didn't hear that, but yes, if
Well, that's what
there's.
this whole comment was about.
Right, but I'm a private consultant. I work for the township, so my recommendations are to the township. They are not approvals. I don't vote for any of this.
Yours, but then there was I thought it was from the board, what the board wanted then from the,
The board has not acted on this application at all.
Okay, then it was all you guys again, but it was a
no.
different one. I'll bring it in.
So the planning commission, we went through the waiver requests, we talked about them, but no official actions were taken on.
They
no-
agreed with the waiver.
can I, no official action was taken on the waivers. So what the process is, this application will come back before the planning commission. They will address some of the issues. They will talk about other things that have been raised. And we'll go through the waivers again formally before they provide their recommendation to this board. So there has been no recommendations from the planning commission. The only recommendations that are out there are my recommendations to the township, suggesting whether they approve, deny, defer, or have some other consideration on those waivers.
And Dan, let me just add so everyone understands the process a little more. The township does not have unfettered or unilateral authority to deny waivers or grant waivers. There's a whole legal process about what has to be considered when the township looks at a waiver. There's actually a case from 25 years ago where the township turned down a waiver and the Commonwealth Court said, now that you should allow that waiver. You made a mistake, and they grant the waivers. So there are rules here that we have to follow that says when you look at a waiver, you have to consider this, you have to consider this. I mean, it's simple things like if you deny this waiver, will you cause a conflict with another requested waiver? Or will you, if you deny this waiver, will you cause a problem with some other requirement of the township? Things like that, and there's a whole process that has to be gone through in considering waivers. And this board will have to go through that process in considering these waivers.
Wait a minute, do you have any other questions, Mike?
I'm good,
Are
thank you.
you finished?
I'm good.
Good, okay, hang.
Jennifer Potoff, I think you got my info before, Church School Road, I live in Church's Schoolhouse, 1857. As you guys all know, I'm very concerned about the legacy that we are leaving for the future, and I bought my home because I love the history of Buckingham and I want to preserve what we have. The one thing that, this is, I guess, kind of a question for Craig, because I know all these procedures we have to follow, et cetera. It feels like the landowner's rights are more important than all of our rights. So like, I do feel like we're protecting, everything we're doing is to protect the landowner's rights. And like, I feel like he's shoving this warehouse and his rights are more important than 20,000 other residents of Buckingham. So we have 20,000 people in Buckingham who don't want this warehouse, or I could be speaking, but we have at least 1,200 who've spoken out. And I feel like his rights are so important, but there's 20,000 people in Buckingham who I would say are just as important as him. How do we get our rights equal to his rights?
Good question, interesting question. If you understand the history of the United States,
I do.
Landowner rights are vested in the Constitution. And zoning is a relatively recent, within the last 100, 120 years, phenomenon. Used to be back when, in fact, Houston, Texas is still this way. It's your land, you do whatever the heck you want. So in passing all these regulations, that was always in the back of the legislature's minds. And in fact, there are a lot of rules that you can't pass because they're deemed to be unconstitutional, infringing on a landowner's rights. And in fact, like in rules of interpretation, if we're looking at an ordinance, the courts will say we have to interpret that most favorably to the landowner because historically in the United States, we've favored landowners' rights. I mean, historically, that's where that all comes from. And that's why these rights are there. And they're constitutionally protected. So the township has to be very careful not to tread on those constitutional protections and to do this the right way.
But if what he is doing would harm
20,000 other people, we must have rights somewhere.
Well, you do, and you're exercising them right now, and the rights are they have to come in front of the planning commissions, and if there was a zoning variance issue, which there isn't here, they'd have to go in front of the zoning hearing board. They have to come in front of this board. This board considers all those sorts of things in making decisions, but they are somewhat shackled or fettered because there's rules they have to follow when making those decisions. And if they don't follow those rules, a court's going to overturn whatever they do and say, no, they can do whatever they want. So
Can we go to court? Do we have rights to
you
do that?
absolutely, if you are what they call an affected party, which in very, very simple terms means basically if you're kind of within a half mile of the development, you can become a party to these proceedings. You can hire a lawyer. You can bring witnesses in. You can have court reporters sitting here. And if you disagree with any decision the township may make, or if the developer disagrees with any decision the township may make, they have the right to appeal to the Court of Common Pleas in Bucks County. And then that court can review that record and decide, well, was that the right decision or wrong decision, and makes a decision based on these rules we're talking about, saying, did they follow the rules? And then if somebody doesn't like that, and this has happened lots of times, then they can go up to the next level, which is the Commonwealth Court. And then if you don't like that decision, you can go to the next level, which is the Supreme Court. I mean,
Pennsylvania.
yeah, Pennsylvania.
and
And
the judge
actually,
can-
you could even go to the U.S. Supreme
And
Court.
the
in some
judge can give
decisions.
them more, right, Craig? He can give them more than what they're asking for now.
Oh, yeah, you can absolutely, the judge could absolutely give them, could be much more generous than the township would be in giving them relief. As I said, you have to be careful that you do.
Is there a chance they would find on our side, on the people's side versus the landowner?
If the landowner was doing something that wasn't allowed. I mean, I gotta tell you, one of the issues here is this is a permitted use in this district. Has been for 50 years. Everyone's correctly identified that really the game here is with the waivers. But, you know, as I said, there are rules in terms of considering waivers. We need to be careful. We need to make sure that we do things in the right way. But you absolutely are allowed to participate in the proceedings. You're allowed to be a litigant in the proceedings. Absolutely.
Lady with her hand up.
My question is, yes, it's.
Give Laura your name again in case.
Jane Walters, Deep Creek Way in Buckingham.
Thank you.
My question is, yes, it's zoned for industrial. And we're not saying no industrial can go there. We're, I think as a community is saying a warehouse with 90 trucks is a problem. Is there a way to say that's not okay, but this is okay? Is that a negotiation, part of the negotiation with them?
Well, court cases said virtually all this stuff is a negotiation, but a warehouse is specifically a permitted use in this district, has been for 50 years. So it would be very difficult to say, we're not gonna let you have a warehouse. Now, you're absolutely right. If we can sit there and show that, well, this is gonna have some really unusual adverse effects, you might have a chance. Be able to say, look, you know, this can't go through because of this, but you have to have bona fide, valid, weighty reasons. And you need to develop a record. You need to get evidence. You need to have all this stuff put together so that you have a court support you.
Are you saying that's part of the voting process, or are you saying that's, if they were to be voted in, we'd then go to the next level of having that kind of?
No, you're all going to get law degrees when you leave here, but that's okay. The process is this: generally when these are not controversial, usually it happens just as you saw earlier tonight. You know,
That's a wonderful use. If we can make this a veterinary office, I would be on.
That's been a vet since
Yeah.
we took our dog there in the 60s.
No, I love the veterinary
But
office.
they just needed to be a little bit bigger, so.
I wish we could
She's
make this.
agreeing that it was a good.
Yeah, I'm glad about that one. I thought that was wonderful.
I guess my question is more of like.
I'm trying to answer for you.
Okay.
Like in that one, wasn't controversial, wasn't a big deal. Ones that are controversial, you'll often see lawyers out there representing folks. There'll often be a court reporter here that takes down everything that happens, so that when it goes up to a court, which in those contested ones it almost inevitably does, the court can read what happened here and decide, gee, did they make the right decision, the wrong decision? What was the evidence? What did they base these decisions on? That kind of stuff. But to make it more complicated, any party can go in and say, yeah, I really didn't get enough evidence in below. So what I'd like to do is have the court above reopen the record and let us put some more evidence in. And then the court can consider the case what we call de novo. Other than that, they have to follow the factual findings of the body below. In this case, it would be the Board of Supervisors. But if the court opens it up de novo, everything's on the table and the court can do any darn thing it wants to. And that can be really dangerous or really good. It's just...
I guess what I'm asking also is, I know we're all speaking, and we're all giving you our opinions and our, facts of, like, how it's gonna impact our lives. Is there anything we can be doing, handing over to you guys as part of our quote-unquote evidence, or anything that we can be doing to give you guys to help, if it was to go to that level?
I would tell you what is not self-interest, but which you probably ought to get a lawyer.
Okay, hang on a second.
Susan Johnson, Church School Road, Buckingham. If there were people in this room who lived within a half mile of this project and wanted to have standing in front of the township, how do they go about it? Where is the process written for that?
Well, you can stand up in front of the planning commission when they're asking for it, or if you want to wait till it becomes this front of board, and you can say, I would like standing. And they'll ask you some, where do you live? How far away are you? How does this
So
affect
tonight
you?
I said, I want to have standing. How does that happen?
The board will vote to give you standing. Or just, they'll tell you, look, we accept, you have standing.
Okay, so is there like a written criteria to get standing written any place?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of written case law on how you get standing, but basically what I've been trying to tell you is, as a rule of thumb, and there are other more complicating factors, but as a rule of thumb, if you're within a half mile, you probably have standing. If you're, 3/4 of a mile away, you probably don't have standing.
And what does standing get you if you have standing?
Standing gets you the right to participate in the hearing as a litigant, just like if you were doing a trial that you see on TV, okay? You have the right to present your own witnesses. You would have the right to cross-examine witnesses of the developer or any other person that had standing. You would get to put exhibits in, like these charts and stuff you saw. And then you would have, most importantly, appeal rights if you believe that the decision was incorrect.
So say there were 20 citizens that lived within a half a mile, all who wanted to have standing.
Yeah.
And each one had their own lawyer, and each one could have their own witnesses, each one could have their own evidence, and that process could maybe go on for 5 years.
Yes, and yes.
I mean, that's a way to jam it up, right?
The township, a lot of folks probably don't know, but the township has been through similar procedures like that before. Years ago, Heritage Builders came in, and they were trying to rezone, I think, 6 or 7 properties in the township. And there were probably 2 or 3 years of hearings. And then it finally went up to the appeals court, and the township denied the application, and fortunately the Court of Common Pleas agreed and denied it, and then it got up to the appeals court, and the appeals court also said the denial was appropriate. But yes, you have the absolute right, if you are what's called an effective party, to get standing and to put on your own witnesses, to put on your own evidence, or to cross-examine, witnesses there. Now, there are certain rules to that, which is, you can't ask a question like, what color is the moon tonight? It has to be relevant. Everything you're doing has to be relevant to the proceedings before
So
the
that's
board.
what I was asking. Where are these rules written down so that we could understand them?
In law books. So
Okay,
you
is there
probably should get a
anything
lawyer.
in the township rules and regulations, ordinances, or anything like that?
The Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code, which is a state act, basically lays out the framework or the skeleton about how we're doing what we're doing. But then, as you might imagine, whenever disputes arise, they go to the courts, and the courts write opinions about, well, in this situation, we should do this, or in this situation, we should do that. And then those opinions become law. So, lawyers will read all those opinions and say, okay, I have to do this or I have to do this because this opinion says that. That's part of what I said tonight when I started out. I mean, the state legislature tried to overturn an earlier case.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, and the courts came and said, yeah, that's great, but this is a constitutional issue, so you can't overturn it.
So anyway, I think you answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a new person.
Okay.
New person.
New person.
I live at 4683 Bradley Court. I'm not within a half a mile unless you count us as collateral damage when the semis come down 202 and they come down 413. So, would we have standing being collateral damage from that nightmare?
You'd have to develop, a record. You'd have to put evidence on to show this is why you're an affected party. And there are definitions of what an affected party is in the municipality's planning code. And then there's a lot of case law under those definitions in terms of what an affected party is. So I'm absolutely oversimplifying this by saying, within a half mile, generally you are a party, and outside of a half mile, generally you're not. So the answer to your question is, this is a lawyer answer. Maybe.
Yeah. I think I'd like to entertain that.
I'd like to follow up on what Arlene brought up about a bond issue. Because I think you said that might be a future thing. But if the township since the township's been trying to buy the land, did you have a purpose in mind? And
I can tell you the township, no, that's probably not true.
so,
The township has talked about trying to preserve the land, which is not buying the land. And the township, I will tell you, has looked in conjunction with other developments at trying to use the land for spray fields, for sewer purposes. That would be a legitimate township purpose.
or another park. So to Arlene's point about a bond issue and other points about pushing this forward and the time frame, isn't that a bond issue a legitimate possibility of raising money through a township bond like we did other years to preserve farmland? A referendum, right? Isn't that a legitimate possibility now?
I don't think anyone's saying it's not a possibility, but what I am saying is you have to have a legitimate governmental purpose to buy that property.
I think, and what I was trying to explain in that, when I said you need an offer, the bond rules have become a lot more stringent as far as borrowing money. So,
Since our
over
last
the
bond
last
issue.
few years, universally, not for us, we are AAA rated, we're good. But we can't just go out for a bond without a purpose, without an agreement, without a that. We won't get the bond at this point, even with a very good rating, which was a little bit different than you could do in the other days where you could, have a referendum, have the support, then go get the bond and then find the properties. Now you actually have to have it all in place before you borrow.
But you have to have an agreement with the landowner, or can the township say, we would like to build a park or a spray field on this property, and the bond is to create that park or spray field?
I think you would need a lot more specifics than just like, hey, we have some ideas and we'd like to do that. I mean, what we have been told, and we haven't gone for a bond under kind of what we've been giving as the advice on that, so I don't know exactly what we would need to do, but we have been told that it needs to be a lot more specific now.
Can it become more specific now that you know how much everybody is
Well,
behind you?
the first thing you'd have to do would get the agreement from the property owner.
No, that was my other.
And that's what I had mentioned there.
And they can move the property.
No, Jeff's had his hand up.
Jeff Lowry, just a real quick one. I'd encourage the supervisors to think about, if you put yourself back 50 years ago when the zoning was created, and what a warehouse represented A warehouse represented a storage facility with a few truck bays, okay? This is something completely different, okay? This is a high-speed distribution center with truck bays on two sides. The nature of that business is to move goods as quickly as possible through and get as many trucks as you can in and out in a short period of time. It's not about storage, okay? This is something very different. So please keep that in mind as you're considering that. It's not the 50-year-ago warehouse definition of storage.
Well, that's a dangerous road, and I'll tell you why. Because as I said earlier, if it's a legitimate use and the township doesn't allow for it, then they can put it anywhere. So we don't want to try and start drawing a distinction between the warehouse that's permitted in the zoning ordinance and other warehouses, because the only warehouses we allow in the zoning ordinance are defined as warehouses. So if someone comes in and says,
Say it doesn't fit. Look how it's constructed.
It's 60 acres.
Doug Seaver, Bradley Court, Buckingham. Could you talk about what the basis for denying this would be? Is there a legal basis that the supervisors have for denying this? Or is it
the only,
if they cross their T's and dot their I's?
sure, the only real issues that I've seen so far on this application are the waiver requests. Because as I said, the zoning, they have the right to have this use there. So, if they came in with no waivers, they didn't need any waivers, the board would have no choice but to grant the use, because they could go to court the next day and get it. And so part of what we were trying to talk about earlier is some of this is a negotiation process. So you want to sit there and say, okay, if they had everything done, you'd still sit there and say, well, can you still do this for us? Can you do that? Or whatever. Can you improve the roads? Can you do that? Whatever you want to have done. And you might get a developer, you might be able to cajole and use a bully pulpit to get a developer to do some of that stuff. But, they have, so if they did everything, if they complied with the ordinances completely, they have the right to do it.
So if they forego the waivers and variances, this board has no choice but to approve it?
If they're not requesting any waivers, this board has no choice.
But they are requesting waivers, right?
They are requesting waivers.
So you have a choice to say no to the waivers.
But they also have to be
According to certain rules, the board has the choice to go say no to the waivers as long as they consider the waivers the way they're required to under the law. In other words, they don't have unfettered discretion just to say no, because I don't like the color of their eyes, so we're saying no. No, you have to have an analysis that says this is why we're saying no.
But isn't there a waiver there for a reason in the first place?
Well, the courts go into certain things like, as I was suggesting earlier, if the subdivision land development ordinance requires you to do something, but if you did that, you would end up violating the zoning ordinance, then the courts are going to tell you that you have to grant the waiver, because you can't have two conflicting provisions. So it's things like that have to be considered.
So it seems this developer and the owner clearly are motivated financially to see this project through and to meet whatever requirements.
Speak up.
To meet whatever requirements are put before them. I thought that I had read, and I admittedly don't remember the source, that certain criteria like preserving the quality of life for community residents, preserving property values, and respect for public safety, not least of which, were three, although not the only criteria, that a board of supervisors could use to justifiably deny a proposal.
If those criteria were set forth in an ordinance and the ordinance were found to be constitutional, the answer would be yes.
Do we not have such an ordinance in Buckingham?
We have ordinances in Buckingham that make general statements about those kinds of things, but what I've been trying to say, and maybe inarticulately, is if a landowner complies with the township subdivision and land development ordinance, the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code, and the zoning ordinance, and is doing everything that's required by those ordinances, you have to grant them the use.
You've made that very clear, and I think that's what's of concern at this point in the meeting, is that it sounds like, as residents of this community, we're not gonna have any other option other than to pursue this legally.
You have that right.
What
But
I'm
I
asking
suspect the
is
lawyer
that
will
a
tell you,
correct statement?
I suspect the lawyer will tell you the same thing I just told you.
Let me rephrase. What I'm saying to you is, based on your statement just now, is it sounds to me as though as long as this property owner and the developer meet whatever requirements are put forth by the planning commission and the board of supervisors, we're not gonna have any other avenue other than to pursue legal course of action. Is that a correct statement?
No. What I said was, if they comply with all the ordinances of the township, as well as requirements of the state, for instance, I don't know, are there any DEP issues here, Dan?
They would need the approval for their septic system, their NPDS permit, so there are some DEP permits.
So as long as they do all the state requirements and they comply with the state statutes and they comply with the ordinances of the township, this board could say no, and a court the next day will say no, yes, they get it. Because they've complied with everything. That's why we have statutes and ordinances.
But I laid out 3 criteria at the beginning. And your response was, well, if there are ordinances in place. We're going around in a little circle here, I think. I laid out 3 criteria.
Those 3
Public
criteria
safety.
do not apply to this zoning district.
Why not? Why are we so special that we don't have that relief?
Well, it's the industrial zone, okay? And there has to be a place in the township to accommodate those kinds of uses.
I think we get that.
Isn't
We've
it
heard that
assuming
tonight. The
somebody
problem is that the infrastructure cannot handle it.
And
as
those
a
are all
result of that
considerations.
inability, people's lives are gonna be put at risk.
And aren't you saying,
So
you're saying
what
they
I
can go-
think we're
One person at a
asking
time.
is some help, some direction from this board about how to proceed to protect ourselves from a wealthy developer.
and it sounds like you're saying they
Hold
can
on,
go
hold on,
anywhere.
hold on.
They can go anywhere. Who's
No.
gonna
No,
sell their
I mean,
land here?
look,
Standing,
Who's going
Craig,
to sell their
standing. You
land
just
here?
said standing.
I have an obligation as a lawyer to tell someone that's on the side of an issue that, I can't give them advice, and I can't give you advice. The advice I'm supposed to give you is tell you, hire a lawyer.
Standing.
So, you have those kind of concerns, you should retain counsel. And you should talk to your lawyer about what your options are.
And you raise the
But
money.
make it clear to them, that it hasn't come before.
No, it's not before the
All
board.
these things are explained.
They're academic at this point, but go ahead, I'm sorry, someone back here had a
Maggie,
question.
they
You
are
said they
raising
can
money
go
for-
wherever they
Huh?
want.
No, what I said was, if there was not a zone where this was allowed, then they could put it anywhere else they wanted in the township.
But when they have to buy the land, who's gonna sell land to these people?
I'm sure if they offer enough money, somebody will sell land to them.
And the fact of the matter is that there is a zone for it, right? So that this is a permitted use in the area, where they're looking. So that really there is no choice in this, other than there might be some legal issues with regard to what this gentleman said in terms of the traffic, the safety, and environmental concerns and things like that we have. So it really comes down to litigation,
We don't know yet, that's the point. We don't know yet.
This board hasn't made any decisions yet, it's not even in front of them.
No, I understand that, but you're laying the groundwork here now to say that this is really, basically, it's already a done deal, that there's no discretion.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
Well, but it's reading between the lines, you're listening between the lines. There's really an opportunity here to for the developer to come in and say, we've met all the criteria, we've asked for a variance, which is reasonable, basically there's no.
They haven't asked for any variances, and what you're talking about is what in my business, in the engineering, is called a by right plan. Okay? And so if a developer comes in with a plan that meets all the ordinances, they have the right to build that proposal by right, because they comply with everything.
That's what I said.
They don't comply with everything here yet. We have saldo waivers, and the board will consider those when it's appropriate. And they're not there yet. They're nowhere near there yet. Yes, ma'am.
Can
can you at least tell us that assuredly you're going by every rule? Are you saying to them, we have real concerns about the quality of life, the safety of children, the traffic flow? Are you saying those things to people? Are you saying?
I think you're saying those things to people now, aren't you?
Are you saying those things when you're giving them feedback?
I can't talk to you about my legal advice to this board, okay? That would be a violation of all sorts of ethical constraints. Your voices are being heard. I guarantee you your voices are being heard. I mean, yeah, everyone understands your concerns.
Are they being heard by the developer?
Probably not. I mean, you know, so.
But so our request to our public servants is that you, in your negotiations and feedback to this group, let them know how the community feels. Because like it or not, if they go ahead and do this, they're gonna be in our community. And it probably won't be as pleasant for them either.
I think, I don't know, okay, so I suspect they know how the community feels.
Any last questions?
Any new questions?
This lady, right here.
My name is Lee Nunno, 4620 Twin Brook Circle, Buckingham Township. Please accept my comments as an exclamation point on the safety concerns of what's happening based on our roads. So we all know that they're very narrow, they have blind spots, they undulate. They're really hard even for our large SUVs to navigate. And through the evening, though, I've come up with another question, and it's specifically regarding the traffic study. We are coming into our season now where we have a lot more pedestrian traffic outside because it's going to be spring and then it's going to be summer. So it makes the most sense that any type of pedestrian traffic study would be done in a seasonal time where we're all out more, right? So the cyclists are out and the runners and the bicycle kids and everyone else. So do we know if that will be an updated version?
Dan?
Well, again, when we look at traffic studies, we do look into that, and again, I understood, and again, I don't recall off the top of my head what the traffic counts, what, to the extent of where all the pedestrian counts were taken, but they've already taken some pedestrian counts. We just asked them to do a pedestrian study, so typically when we do these studies, if there is some seasonal iteration that we need to, relook at it during the summer, we'll do that. Sometimes you'll get a study when school's out, and then we kind of identify that date is not a good date. So those are things that we look at when traffic studies do come in.
That's common sense. That makes sense. That makes me feel better. I mean, of course, like we have a lot of bikers on the roads only in the spring and summer and fall. But, Saturday, if they did a study, there would be no one outside because it was raining cats and dogs and it's cold.
Again, we typically look at weather. We look at, just kind of dates in the calendar of where they took their time, their traffic studies. But as I said, I do know they took some initial pedestrian counts when they did their initial study, which was probably about a year ago, so, 6 months ago.
Thank you, but the roads are really not meant for anyone, even the large SUV that I used to drive when my kids were little.
When was the traffic study done?
I would like to make.
Well, hold on, because that lady's had her hand up.
Okay.
Hi, Marie Trojan, Lumstead, Landisville Road. The young lady that spoke back here with the 3 children on Landisville Road, and then you said something about arterial roads. We weren't part of the study because we're too far out. How can we get to be part of that study? What do we need to do? Because as a resident, for 24 years, T-Force tractor trailer went down Landisville yesterday. This morning I saw Coca-Cola tractor trailer go on Cold Spring Creamery heading towards 413. R&L Transport goes down Landisville to 413, and Estes goes down Landisville to 413 fairly regularly. Now, I live there, I see this. I don't sit on the porch watching constantly, but I work in New York. This is what's happening. How do we get that study pushed out, because we are affected
You are
now.
You were talking about the Landisville and.
From Landisville, from
And
Burnhouse
Burnhouse Hill, Landisville, that little dog leg,
Yep.
that is included in their traffic study because their primary access for their vehicles comes out to Burnhouse Hill Road. So they go, and again, that's why the study includes the Burnhouse Hill and 202, as well as Burnhouse Hill and Danborough and Pleasant Pike.
What about
So-
the Douglas cars?
Right, well, no, the traffic study evaluates those intersections based on the existing traffic counts. They'll do initial traffic counts, and they'll count cars and large trucks. There's only, that two segments. So when they come back, so they'll do, it's basically do three different studies. They'll do one of just existing condition today. Then they'll extend existing conditions out to what they call their, build out year. So, and again, I don't know the exact date, but it could be, say, 2026 is their build out date. So then they'll do a study of all those intersections again in 2026 without any development. And then they'll add, for the third study, they'll add their vehicles where they believe that they're going to go onto those roads and those intersections, and they'll evaluate them again. And that's when we compare existing, build out without development, and build out with. And that's when, if there's a impact at an intersection, that is when we get improvements to those intersections. So your intersection, because you are along the trail of where the vehicles will go, and again, they purposely have designed this so all the cars and passenger vehicles will go out to Burnhouse Hill, where all the tractor trailers will go out to Stony. So that, again, that there was some forethought in getting the tractor trailer traffic away from some of those residential areas off of Cold Spring Creamery Road. You made a second point about existing trucks going down Landisville, going down Cold Spring Creamery Road. All of those roads, Landisville, is a good example, have been approved for trucks for years. There is no restrictions currently in place. You have the county bridge along Landisville Road that was widened by the county because they knew years ago that was part of the township's industrial zone. You have Cold Spring Creamery Road, which is a state highway, and there are no restrictions on tractor trailers on that section, any section of Cold Spring Creamery Road. So there are vehicles that come from Doylestown, go right down Cold Spring Creamery Road to 413, and continue their way through the township. So those are not current restrictions. One of the things we've asked them to do in their traffic study and evaluating their exit from the site is to look at those intersections that they are impacting and determine whether those intersections with their new vehicles can make those turns. And I think Jeff had mentioned about not being able to make the turns. Those are the things that the township is asking them to show, and theoretically, if they don't fit through those intersections, we're gonna ask them to make improvements to it, or part of those discussions that we haven't even gotten to because we literally reviewed one plan, we've had one public hearing about it, and again, we hear all of the comments. I think the applicant hears them, whether they agree that they're going to address all of their issues. They certainly understand where the concern points are, and that's what their studies and what the additional drawings and improvements that they're going to present at some point when they come back in will hopefully address. That's what this whole purpose, the process is so that they submit something we all don't like, we refine it, tell them what we want better, and they come back in, we all complain about it again, and it's just a process until, we get to a point where we can either be completely satisfied or partially satisfied and, compromise on things. So, this is the very beginning of the process.
Okay, so you wanted to say something, but does anybody have anything different to say, new to say, besides a bond of this, and I'm not denigrating it, I'm just saying, a question about the process,
Yes.
but you wanted to speak.
I wanted to say that it's not just the 90 trucks, but there's gonna be employee parking for 145, plus overflow parking for another 150 or so. So we're looking at 300 more cars up and down Burnhouse Hill Road, let's say, on a daily basis.
Trying to
Just
get
saying
to work
this.
on time.
Trying to get to work on time, exactly. Thank you.
We got two more people.
Okay, Arlene, and then this gentleman, and then
Oh, sorry.
really
Then we
think about
finish,
if there's anything new to add.
Otherwise, we have to finish the meeting.
The traffic study, that is from the built person that has the property, am I correct?
Is from
You
the
don't-
applicant.
Yeah, that comes from that. Now, is our township going to do a traffic study separately from the traffic study you will get from them? Is it possible that our township could hire people outside from all this and do a traffic study when the time comes?
If the township desires to redo a study, I guess they could, but, you
Do
know.
what?
I said if the township wishes to do that, yes, they could.
Well, isn't it possible when it could be some kind of a conflict of interest and you don't pick up things, but if you get your own traffic study from
Dan-
another
yeah,
company,
Dan's gonna-
then you would have that to compare with their traffic study, isn't that possible?
Certainly.
And I think you went through a whole explanation of
No
how
answer
the,
for
how
that?
the studies, how the
Right.
study is
So,
reviewed and.
Every,
yeah, I think
every
we
project that
covered this.
requires a traffic study,
From the
It
people
is-
that are doing the project.
right, and the
Yeah.
township hires
That's my
me,
point.
who has
We have an
experiences in
engineer.
reviewing traffic studies, to go through those studies.
Yeah.
And again, there are a lot of pages, they're not, I don't wanna say that they're not very complicated,
Yeah,
but they say pretty much all the same
Yeah.
thing, that it's based
I
on very,
understand.
so,
That's the point.
All right.
It's a point that maybe the boards could consider on something as massive as this in our township, to go on the outside and possibly consider getting your own study if it gets that far. The second thing, the airport, they put in something at the township to have the runway extended.
No.
No,
No.
I
no.
was part of that whole thing.
That was my
the
first
airport,
public
the
meeting.
airport put a
Yes.
proposal.
22,000.
Hold on, you're talking about 25 years ago, right?
I don't care how many years.
Okay,
No.
all right, okay, so we all
It should be
understand.
Don't-
40 years ago
Ollie,
because
don't-
I'm here
yeah,
50.
just don't spread
So,
any
I
rumors.
mean,
There
it
was
doesn't
a
matter how
proposal
long
in
ago.
2005.
The study that was done, they wanted this is history for the people to know because they're gonna have to move forward maybe. They came in here for a longer runway for jets. This is a fact. You can all say what you want.
Right.
You weren't on the
Jets
board.
go
Arlene, we helped stop it.
Stop.
I helped stop it.
Yeah.
When they came in
Yeah.
for an extension for jets, the town people got together through the organization that I had, which was a town people organization, and we went ourselves and fought it at the county level, and we won.
Correct.
So it is possible to go forward other than the township.
No, no,
because we did
the
not include
township
the
denied
township in that.
the township denied the applications. I was involved in that litigation. I was
Well, I was
representing the
involved in
township.
it. I-
Okay, wait, you know what? We have,
It's my
I
first vote,
want,
Arlene.
yes,
I voted
yes, you
against
are
it.
next. But let's stick with this. Try to get all the questions answered. You know, there's other things on the agenda, but I don't want anyone to, none of us, I speak for everybody. I don't want anybody to leave feeling like they should have asked a question. Or made a comment.
Made a comment.
Yeah.
Tom Bresnahan, Landisville Road, Buckingham side. So I'm just trying to clear this up, and I'm trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. I'm from Fairfax, Virginia. I'm not from here, so I'm not used to small town. I have a county, I have a state, and I have the federal. So townships and boroughs is all fascinating. I think that's great. It's lovely. I think it's fantastic. Also, thank you all for being here. You guys are great. Thank you very much. And listening to us in kindness. But what I'm hearing is on the engineering side and the workflow on this. So I'm hearing from Dan a lot of we's and they's, and we don't know who the we's and they's are. So we're getting it from them, and then
Yeah.
I just found this out. You just said it. I did not know you were a consultant. I did not know that.
He's our township engineer.
He's a consultant.
Yeah.
It could be it could be the IT person. It could be anybody. So you're a consultant. So all this information, here's how I'm seeing it. All this information comes in from them, the developers, who are build whatever they want to do. It gets funneled down, and then it's we. Who is we, Dan? Is it just you making this decision? But hold on, I'm not done. So that's one. You review it, you look at it, and then it gets sent over to Luke, correct?
No.
No.
Or what is, I'm asking the process. Maggie, thank you. I'm asking the process, and then it goes to the next step. So I'm hearing a lot of we's and they's, and it's, and Dan,
And
let
I'll
me
explain the
say
we
this,
and
Dan.
they.
You could literally talk me off the edge of like this. You could, so I'm gonna give I'm gonna ask Luke for that answer. Is that okay?
Actually, I think
Or
for the
Maggie.
timeline of the process, you should describe the timeline of the process and then ask Luke your question.
Okay,
So
there
that
we
then
go.
you have a comprehensive picture of
Yeah.
how it goes.
That's what I need. 'cause
That's
I
what
got the
I'm hearing
timelines at the
from you.
beginning,
Well,
And I
I-
didn't get where it all fit in, and then there was
I did
gaps.
this already twice, but I'll do it again.
It's fine, there's an awful lot going on.
There is.
I missed it. If whoever said it went over twice, I apologize.
Well-
I
But I'm
apologize.
It's
happy to tell
okay,
you again.
it's okay.
I'm
Wait,
happy to
wait,
tell you
I'll
again.
hear it again.
It's okay.
Hold
We're
on,
gonna-
and the other thing is, it's confusing because I know that there's been a lot of input of misinformation, which is just the world we live in. So, you know, have the process laid out, and then maybe a lot of these things we're saying will make sense. And, you know,
Go ahead, Craig.
So a property owner, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a property owner, they can have an agreement of sale for the property. So it's either the person that actually owns it or a person that has an agreement of sale. We call that an equitable owner. And that's what is here, is a developer is an equitable owner of the property. So they come in and they say, we have this piece of property and we want to do something with it. And they will probably take a look at what's allowed in the particular zone in the township and what's not allowed, and they'll look at this subdivision ordinance and say, can we meet those requirements or not meet those requirements? And they file an application with the township. They also have to give a copy to the Bucks County Planning Commission, which is a county agency. It also ends up going, a copy ends up going to the township engineer, which is actually a statutory position. So Dan's a consultant, but an engineer, township engineer, is a statutorily mandated position. So it goes that. And then it goes internally in the township as well. The zoning officer will take a look at it. The police department will take a look at it. Who am I missing?
Fire marshal.
Fire marshal.
Road
So
department.
you
Yeah,
should
road
know.
department, I mean, everyone in the township,
Landscape.
and they will, do the reviews. And then the first step actually is after the township engineer does a review letter of the plan and says, these are the problems, these are the things that are okay, this is stuff they have to address. It goes in front of the township planning commission, okay? Which it's already done once. And then the township planning commission, as has happened in this case, will often say, yeah, you got stuff that's messed up here, it needs to be fixed. Fix all this stuff and come back and we'll take a look at it again. Which is what they do. And hiding in the back there is the chairman of the township planning commission, trying not to be seen. Hi, Andrea. So
Who, by the way, does not get
all
paid.
volunteers.
Does
No,
not get
it's a
paid.
volunteer and a neighbor
Someone
and a
that-
resident.
Yeah, someone
Yeah.
at the last meeting said that they pay her salary. Thank you, Andre.
So anyway, let me try and continue for you. So, and that's where we are right now. It's been to the planning commission once. They got a bunch of feedback saying, here's a bunch of problems, a bunch of issues, you need to fix those. And they said, okay, let us go back and rework the plans and come back again. And she said, okay. And that's why there's this request to extend the amount of time, actually it's the township's requesting them to extend the amount of time the township has to act on the application. Because otherwise it gets deemed approved if we don't act in a timely way. So, the county planning commission also issues a letter that the township will get. And when they get through the township planning commission, the township planning commission makes a recommendation. Okay, they're not that's all they do. They can't decide one way or another. They make a recommendation to the board of supervisors. And the recommendation will be, you shouldn't approve this, or you should approve this with these changes and conditions, or, this is a great plan, you all just approve it, whatever it is. And then all this information comes to the board, and then the applicant has to come in front of the board again. And this is what we were talking about earlier. All these folks are welcome to appear at that hearing. And the board then will take into consideration all the information they've gotten from the planning agencies and the engineers and the zoning officer and the police department and everyone else. And at that point, they'd be absolutely happy to have this discussion with you and hear from all of you and say, what about this, what about that? And then it becomes incumbent on these good folks to make a decision. And no matter what decision they make, they're either going to make the developer mad, make somebody mad, doesn't matter. But then if you folks, the developer, or somebody's unhappy with that decision, they have the right to appeal it to the Court of Common Pleas in Doylestown. It goes to a single judge who reviews it and says, yeah, it was the right decision, no, that was the wrong decision. Again, by certain objective criteria. And then, as I was explaining earlier, it can go up to the next level, which is the Commonwealth Court, and after that, it can conceivably go to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and if it's really wild, it could possibly go to the U.S. Supreme Court. But that's the basic review process. And where we are here is, it's just at the very, very beginning. It's only been through one hearing. They're going back and changing all the plans to try and meet the objections that the Planning Commission and the Township Engineer and the County Planning Commission had to the application. And they're gonna come back, and I assume they're gonna fix some stuff, and maybe they'll say there's some stuff they can't fix. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. But they'll go in front of the Planning Commission again, and the Planning Commission will see where they are, and the Planning Commission will even say, yeah, okay, we're gonna make a recommendation, or no, you need to go back and work on it some more.
And the dates for that, again, I know you said it or a lot of times, but what's the date, the next, or the extension? You said August 1st or August?
The extension is to,
I think it's
August 1st, 2024. And as I also said earlier, I fully anticipate they'll ask for another extension.
And then Luke, you receive that information and you say yes or no to it, or give your advice back to the township for approval? Is that typically how that works? Sorry, you don't need to answer that.
He just gives advice
Yeah.
to the township
Okay.
as his county planner. But
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you, the county planners did design that whole Old Easton Road. They did all that, and I understand why they did it. The whole
John, should we stay out of this?
The whole technology.
You answered my question. I don't want to take up any more time.
Okay,
Well,
good.
you weren't there.
No, wasn't.
That's a county
Wasn't
plan.
him.
Okay,
Thank you for asking the question.
all good?
Just a quick question.
Yep.
Yes.
Anthony Vicari, 4317 Shedden Circle, Buckingham Township. On the decision process, you're gonna take all this information in when the applicant comes and presents. Is that a decision you make that night, or is it something where you'll weigh it for a couple days,
Typically what happens, I mean, it doesn't have to be one meeting. The Board of Supervisors are gonna say, yeah, you need to come back again, because we're not happy with what you've got done. And so it could be 1, 2, 3, 4 meetings. But when it's finished, the board typically will make a oral or verbal decision that night. But then it becomes incumbent to issue a written decision within 15 days of the oral decision. So there's a writing that says it was approved or disapproved for these reasons, or it was approved with these conditions, and here are all the conditions, or whatever the approval is. But it has to be put in writing within 15 days.
Thank you.
And the appeal period runs from that, when it's in writing.
Lady in front of you, Jeff.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but I have to just get this off my chest. Gail Donegan, Church School Road and Coast Infirmary. I'm at the epicenter, like many people here. I've been here 35 years, I've raised 4 kids. I love Buckingham. I've always been so proud to tell people I live in Buckingham. When I first moved here, I thought I was gonna have a Doylestown address, and, because I'm around the cusp too. I am so glad that I am a Buckingham person. I've always been very proud of the supervisors and the township doing the right thing. Hard nose, I love those slow signs on the McDonald's. I love the no airport. I mean, I followed what you guys did. I'm hoping that this is gonna continue, that I'm gonna be proud of where I live. I feel that the horses left the barn. I feel that even though you said we're still in the infancy, I feel no. I feel like they have deep pockets. Di Girolamo have political connections. They have a lot of money. And this Bertucci guys from Jersey, they know already all the things that we're going to come at them with. They know about their septic system. They have been around the block a couple times. They've built warehouses, at least 3 of them that I know of.
Oh, they're huge. They have like 50 warehouses.
They know everything. They're not gonna be pussyfooting around. They know before we tell them, they're gonna say, they're up against Buckingham. I want you guys to remember how tough
Jeff, finish it off.
Just one quick question for Dan. Something that I heard you say towards the end of the planning commission meeting, and I just wanna make sure that I heard correctly, and understand if it's changed or not, which was, as you understood from the developer, that they could control the trucks and the path of the trucks going out, but weren't gonna be able to control the path of the trucks coming in. Did we hear that correctly at the planning commission meeting?
I think what they explained, and again, I don't control a truck, any truck, so what they were trying to explain was they were going, obviously the orientation of the driveway exit onto Stony was going to be such that truck could only make the right out, and they would allow the left turn in, but there was a concern about restricting traffic from making a right in from Stony. And the traffic engineer explained that if they didn't want to restrict that movement, because if there is a truck that comes down Cold Spring Creamery Road, makes the left onto Stony, that they would be able to get in and not have to drive all the way around the block and make a whole bunch of U-turns. So their objective was to advise their truck drivers to go the preferred route, which is up Research Way, Old Easton, Landisville, and Stony, but not to restrict the movement if it does come from Cold Spring. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
I want to make sure everybody, is that everybody?
Thank you. Good comment.
So, just to finish it off, don't worry, Craig, I'm not gonna say anything that's done. I want to thank all of you for coming here, because we're your neighbors, and I lived there for 10 years at Buckingham Square. And so John, Maggie, and me, our kids were born here, and my 4 kids are being raised here. So,
My grandchildren.
and her grandchildren. So, and trust me, the reason why Buckingham is the way it is, or one of the reasons, because it's all of us, right? But, with the airport with Arlene, we're friends, and, we were there for that. So we hear everything being said. So thank you very much for, stop.
Yes,
I just said I
Stop.
hear.
This is good.
Okay.
We need to vote.
Okay.
And
There's a motion. Okay.
Did you call the motion?
No. we
Call
didn't.
the motion.
There was a
Call the
motion.
motion to.
Yeah, now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, make a motion that,
You've already
Made
made
the
the motion.
motion.
It's been
Let's
seconded.
call.
Just call the vote.
okay.
We gotta finish
Okay,
this up.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
All right.
Good night,
Number
everybody,
9.
if you're leaving.
Good night.
We're
Number
just
9.
getting to the good stuff. You don't want to stay? Okay. Number 9, consideration. I'll make a motion, we approve
Wait, Tom.
the partial assessment of these, oh, sorry, the partial assignment of easement agreement. Can we, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
if you
you
can
know
go
what?
outside just so we can,
Yeah,
if you're gonna
yeah.
talk, just so we can finish our meeting for everybody? I'm sorry, thank you. I make a motion, we approve the partial assessment of easement agreement between,
Sign it.
It's fine.
did I say,
She's
sorry.
got it.
Okay, Gervnish Real Estate LLC and Buckingham Township
We can
cover
hear you.
tax map parcel 06-010-115-003 and 06-010-115-001.
You got a second. It's
Any
fine.
discussion?
Lori
I
can
know.
hear.
Any discussion? Okay,
No.
all in favor?
Aye.
Number 10, make a motion, we amend the February 25th, 09 written approval, March 11th, 09 land development, the Joseph Bernardo tract, 2008-1 to revise the residential development agreement recorded
He was
with the
sleeping.
Bucks County Recorder of
sleeping.
Deeds on November 16th, 2011 at Book 6862, page 1916. To allow the development to proceed without posting the improvement escrow and only posting sufficient review escrows only.
Table it or
No second.
Do I have a
Move
second?
it, second, and then vote.
Nope.
no? Yeah, second.
John, second?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
No.
No.
No? Okay, and by the way, thank you for Maggie for helping me pick everybody in the audience, because I couldn't see anybody.
I was so bossy.
So, thank you to Maggie. Okay, number 11. I make a motion we approve escrow release number 1 for the Trisecki Track Lot 1 Township File SA 2016-02 in the amount of $156,918.78.
You got it.
Okay, any discussion?
Nope.
All approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, sorry.
It's okay. Give me 1 second, I think I lost my place.
No, you're on
You're
12.
district
Oh, I'm on
manager.
12, okay, I'm on 12.
Manager's items.
Yep, okay, manager's items. I make a motion, we accept the roadmaster's recommendations for the highway materials joint bid award through the Bucks County Consortium. Do I have a second?
You have a second?
Any discussion?
No, I was just looking for the roads. But no.
All in
Well,
favor?
that's the next part.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
That's,
Yeah.
all in
next
favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. The next one, I make a motion that we authorize the township staff to advise the 2024,
Advertise.
I'm sorry, thank you, to advertise the 2024 Buckingham Township Road Improvement Project bid. And don't you, every year you'll receive the roads.
I will second that, but let me just
Yep.
tell you what the roads are. That
Yeah,
we're
Okay.
I have
Yeah, I
that.
have 'em.
John has them, go ahead.
No? Oh, go ahead,
I
John.
have 'em.
Okay.
It's a tradition, John does.
Oh.
Go ahead.
No, I don't have them.
Okay.
Are you
Would you
serious?
like, I have them.
I literally
Ready?
have them on my.
Yes,
I
go
have
ahead.
Ready? Lower Mountain Road, 313 to Lower Mountain West. Franklin Drive, which is right off of Lower Mountain West. Toby Lane, Cranberry Road, Redgate, Foothill Drive, and Angus, which are all part of, aren't they all
Redgate, all
They're all
Redgate.
Redgate. This is Sam's neighborhood, North Mallard, Redwood Court, Briar Circle, Clearwater Court.
Hear you?
Bridlewood.
And then there's Anderson Road, 413 to School Zone. And then Anderson Road, rebuild the section at Hollycong Road, that's alternate 2. And alternate 3 is Indian Springs Road and Bittersweet Lane.
I was bought a house on
Got
Bittersweet
it.
Lane.
There you go.
Yep, and so the,
To State
State,
Road.
state
sorry.
road, state road.
The State Road.
okay, all in
I
favor?
just say
Aye.
Aye.
I just automatically
Well, that's
say
right.
State.
You got
Okay.
2 votes.
Next, make a motion we approve the purchase order to Fred Beans Ford Lincoln in the amount of $55,746 for a 2024 Ford F-250 for new motor carrier enforcement vehicle, and the purchase order to Tyrone's Emergency Vehicle Uplifting Inc. Uplifting Inc. in the amount of $31,417.66 to upfit the 24 Ford F-250, and this is for the police department, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Whew. Next one. Make a motion we approve the purchase order to Thompson's Networks in the amount of $22,277.93 for security camera equipment and installation of Hollycong Park, the older pavilion, Hansel Park Pavilion, and George M. Bush Park Pavilion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So that's for cameras at all 3 parks?
For safety.
Just go
Yeah.
through them.
Yep.
Okay.
No, I think I'm.
Okay, any other discussion?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, yeah.
Aye. Make a motion. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. Make a motion we approve a purchase order to GateQuest LLC, DB doing business as Safe Crossings, in the amount of $24,120 for 3 flood gates. Second?
You have a second, and
Yep.
good purchase
These
after
are,
this weekend.
these are gates that when we have floods, it's to protect vehicles that they don't drive and get stuck, because that's happened plenty of times. All in favor?
Yes. Aye.
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 Okay. Make a motion, we approve purchase order to Dream Creek Concrete and Masonry in the amount of $87,000 for the replacement of the slate walkway, right out there, at the Buckingham Township Administration
And
Building.
below.
And below.
And the police department. And the
Okay,
road.
and the police department. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
It's crazy money.
It is, well, it's the way things are today. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Make a motion, we approve the payment to Clemens, Richter, and Reese PC in the amount of $1,226 from the Stony Mead escrow account, Township File SA 98-05, reimbursing payment for the recording of dedication documents. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, isn't this kind of a conflict? I'm kidding.
I don't know, whatever that means.
Okay.
Okay, any other
It's
discussion?
just documents.
They're just
Just
documents.
recording documents.
Just recording documents.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anything else, Dana?
Nope.
I am gonna make a
So
motion.
you want to get involved in politics?
Yeah. I am gonna make a motion. We close the March 27th, 2023 regular business meeting of Buckingham Township.
2023.
Maggie?
For
Yeah,
2024.
Okay, I'd like to discuss this. No, just
24.
kidding.
No.
Aye.
2024.
24.
Aye, I'm the only aye.
So,
That's
you know
'cause it's
what, we didn't
24.
Can I
talk
have an
about, yeah, aye. We didn't
24.
talk about the two
24.
properties I looked, the